Hello everyone, I am the Sauntering Spellcaster, sauntering through your mind and other places. Today, I want to share with you another series of items that I happen to love. I love stories. I find them inspiring in many ways. The inspiration for my own character, in a sense, was due to my love of stories, and my hope that as a content creator, I will be able to make a story myself using this character, and hopefully the community that I may build in due time. But today I want to try something I've never done before. I want to read through, a story on YouTube. And I chose to read through the oldest fictional narrative in the English language. I've read many translations of Beowulf. I've read Seamus Heaney's translation. I've read Tolkien's translation. There are going to be several more, I have no doubt. It's a classic story. I'll be reading through Tolkien's translation this time. And Beowulf just has a way of continuing to speak to people throughout the ages, with its themes of providence and heroism and sacrifice and, the desires at once to do great deeds met with the inevitability of death and the destruction of pride in human beings. It's a story that I hope, as I share it with you, whether you've read it before or you've never heard of it, that it may stir you. It certainly stirred me, as I was introduced to it as a young man. So without any further ado, Beowulf. Lo, the glory of the kings of the people of the Spear Danes, in days of old we have heard tell, how those princes did deeds of valor. Oft sealed Seafing robbed the host of foemen. Many peoples of the seats where they drank their mead, laid fear upon men. He who first was found forlorn, comfort for that he lived to know, mighty grew under heaven, throve in honor, until all that dwelt nigh about, over the sea where the whale rides, must hearken to him and yield him tribute. A good king was he. To him was an heir afterwards born, a young child in his courts whom God sent for the comfort of the people, perceiving the dire need which they long while endured, aforetime being without a prince. To him therefore the Lord of life, who rules in glory, granted honor among men. Beo was renowned, far and wide his glory sprang, the heir of Seald and Seedland. Thus doth a young man bring it to pass with good deed and gallant gifts, while he dwells in his father's bosom, that after in his age there cleave to him loyal knights of his table, and the people stand by him when war comes. By worthy deeds in every folk is a man ennobled. Then at his allotted hour, Sild the valiant passed into the keeping of the Lord, and to the flowing sea his dear comrades bore him, even as he himself had bidden them. While yet their prince, he ruled the Scyldings with his words, beloved lord of the land. Long was he master. There at the haven stood with ringed prow, ice hung, eager to be gone, the prince's bark. They laid then their beloved king, giver of rings, in the bosom of the ship, and glory by the mast. There were many precious things and treasures brought from regions far away. Nor have I heard tell that men ever in more seemly wise raised a boat with weapons of war and harness of battle. On his lap lay treasures heaped that now must go with him far into the domain of the sea. With lesser gifts no whit did they adorn him, with treasures of that people. Then did those that in the beginning sent forth alone over the waves a little child. Moreover, high above his head they set a golden standard and gave him to ocean. Let the sea bear him. Sad was their heart and mourning in their soul. None can report with truth, nor lords in their halls, nor mighty men beneath the sky, who received that load. Then in the strongholds long was Beowulf of the Scyldings, beloved king of men, renowned among peoples. Elsewhere had the prince his father departed from his home, until thereafter he begot Healfdene the High, who held the lordship while he lived, aged and fierce in war, over the fair Scyldings. To him were children four born in the world, in order named captain of the host, Hrothgar and Hrothgar and Helga the Good, and, I have heard, that was Onella's queen, dear consort of the warrior Sylfing. Thereafter was fortune in war vouchsafed to Hrothgar, and glory in battle, that the vassals of his own kindred hearkened willingly unto him, and the numbers of his young warriors grew to a mighty company of men. Then it came into his heart that he would command men to fashion a hall and a mansion, a mightier house for their mead drinking than the children of men had ever known, and there within would he apportion all things to young and old, such as God had granted him, save the people's land and the lives of men. Then have I heard that far away and wide to many a kindred on this middle earth was that work proclaimed, the adorning of that dwelling of men. In a while, swift among men, it came to pass for him that it was all made ready, the greatest of houses and of halls. For it he devised the name of Heorot, even he whose word far and wide was law. His vow he bellied not, the rings he dealt in treasure at the feast. The hall towered high with horned gables wide, awaiting the warring billows of destroying fire. The time was not far off that between father and daughter's spouse murderous hate in memory of a deadly feud should awake again. Then the fierce spirit that abode in darkness grievously endured a time of torment, in that day after day he heard the din of revelry echoing in the hall. There was the sound of harp and the clear singing of the minstrel. There spake he that had knowledge to unfold from far off days the first beginning of men, telling how the Almighty wrought the earth, a veil of bright loveliness that the waters encircle. How triumphant he set the radiance of the sun and moon as a light for the dwellers in the land, and adored the regions of the world with boughs and with leaves. Life too he devised for every kind that moves and lives. Even thus did the men of that company live in mirth and happiness, until one being began to work deeds of wrong, a fiend of hell. Grendel was that grim creature called, the ill-famed haunter of the marches of the land, who kept the moors, the fastness of the fens, and, unhappy one, inhabited long while the troll kind's home. For the Maker had prescribed him with the race of Cain, that bloodshed, for that Cain slew Abel, the eternal Lord avenged. No joy had he of that violent deed, but God drove him for that crime far from mankind. Of him all evil broods were born, ogres and goblins, and haunting shapes of hell. And the giants too, that long time warred with God, for that he gave them their reward. Then went Grendel forth when night was come to spy on that lofty house, to see how the Ring-Danes, after the ale drinking, had ordered their abode in it. And he found therein a lordly company, after their feasting, sleeping, sorrow they knew not, the unhappy fate of men. That accursed thing, ravenous and grim, swift, was ready. 30 nights he seized upon their couch. Thence back he got him gloating over his prey, faring homeward with his glut of murder to seek his lairs. Thereafter at dawn, with the first light of day, was Grendel's strength in battle made plain to men. Then was weeping after feasting upraised, a mighty cry at morn. The glorious king, their prince proven of old, joyless sat. His stout and valiant heart suffered and endured sorrow for his knights. When men had scanned the footprints of that foe, that demon cursed, too bitter was that strife, too dire and weary to endure. Nor was it longer space than but one might ere he wrought again cruel murders more, and grieved not for them. His deeds of enmity and wrong, too deep was he therein. Thereafter not far to seek was the man who elsewhere more remote sought for him his couch and a bed among the lesser chambers, since now was manifested and declared thus truly to him with token plan the hatred of all that hall keeper. Thereafter he who escaped the foe kept him more distant and more safe. Even thus did one lord it, and against right make war, alone against them all, until empty stood that best of houses. Long was the while, 12 winters' space, the Scyldings' dear lord anguish, and every woe and sorrow deep. So it was made known to men, and revealed to the children of mankind, sadly in songs that Grendel strove a while with Hrothgar, wrought hate and malice, evil deeds and enmity. For many a year a strife unceasing, truce would he not have with any man of the Danish host, nor would withhold his deadly cruelty, nor accept terms of payment. And there no cause had any of the counselors to look for golden recompense from the slayer's hands. Nay, the fierce killer pursued them still, both knights and young, a dark shadow of death, lurking, lying in wait, and long night keeping the misty moors. Men know not whither sorcerer of hell in their wanderings roam. Thus many a deed of evil that foe of men, stalking dreadfully alone, did often work, many a grievous outrage. In Herod's hall bright with gems in the dark night he dwelt. Never night he approached the precious throne of grace in the presence of God, nor did he know his will. That was great torment to the Sealding's lord, anguish of heart. Many a mighty one sapped off communing, counsel they took what it were best for stout-hearted men to do against these dire terrors. At times, they vowed sacrifices to idols in their heathen tabernacles. In prayers implored the slayer of souls to afford them help against the sufferings of the people. Such was their wont, the hope of heathens. They were mindful in their hearts of hell. Nor knew they the Creator, the judge of deeds, nor had heard of the Lord God, nor verily had learned to praise the guardian of the heavens and the King of glory. Woe shall be to him that through fiendish malice shall thrust down his soul into the fire's embrace, to look for no comfort, and no wise to change his lot. Blessed shall be he that may after his death day go unto the Lord and seek peace in the bosom of the Father. Even thus over the sorrows of that time did the son of Healfdene brood unceasingly. Nor could that wise prince put aside his grief. Too strong was that strife, too dire and weary to endure, that it come upon the folk. Torment fierce and cruel that they needs must bear, the greatest of miseries that came by night. Of this, of Grendel's deeds, the knight of Hagelac, esteemed among the Geats, heard in his home afar, in that day of man's life here in might, the strongest of mankind was he, noble and of stature beyond man's measure. He bade men prepare for him a good craft upon the waves, saying that over the waters, where the swan rides, he would seek the warrior king, that prince renowned, since he had need of men. With that voyage little fault did wise men find. Dear though he were to them, they encouraged his valiant heart, and they observed the omens. Champions of the people of the Geats, that good man had chosen from the boldest that he could find, and 15 in all they sought now their timbered ship, while that warrior, skilled in the ways of the sea, led them to the margins of the land. Time passed on. Afloat upon the waves was the boat beneath the cliffs. Eagerly the warriors mounted the prow, and the steaming seas swirled upon the land. Men-at-arms bore to the bosom of the ship their bright harness, their cunning gear of war. They then, men on a glad voyage, thrust her forth with her well-joined timbers. Over the waves of the deep she went, sped by the wind, sailing with foam at throat, much like unto a bird, until in due hour upon the second day her curving beak had made such way that those sailors saw the land, the cliffs beside the ocean gleaming, the sheer headlands and capes thrust far to sea. Then for that sailing ship the journey was at an end. Thence the men of the wind-loving folk climbed swiftly up upon the beach, and made fast the sea-borne timbers of their ship. Their mail shirts they shook, their raiments of war. They gave thanks to God that the passages of the waves had been made easy for them. Thence from the high shore the watchmen of the Scyldings, who of duty guarded the cliffs by the sea, saw them bearing over the gangway bright shields and gallant harness. Anxiety smote him in his heart to learn what these men might be. He went then to the strand riding on his horse, Hrothgar's knight, and mightily he brandished in his hands his stout spear shaft, and in words of parley he asked, "What warriors are ye, clad in corslets, that have come thus steering your tall ship over the streets of the sea, hither over deep waters? Lo, I long while have dwelt at the ends of the land, keeping watch over the water, that in the land of the Danes no foeman might come harrying with raiding fleet. Never have armed men more openly here essayed the land, knowing not at all the password of men in array of war, nor having the consent of kinsmen. Never have I seen on earth a greater among men than is one of you, a warrior in arms. No hall servant is he in brave show of weapons, if his fair countenance lie not, and his peerless mane. Now must I learn of what people you are sprung, rather than ye should pass on hence, false spies, into the land of the Danes. Come now, ye dwellers afar, voyagers of the sea, hear my thought plainly spoken. In haste it is best that ye declare whence your ways have led." To them then the chief made answer. The leader of the company opened his store of words. "We are by race of the Geats and hearth comrades of Hygelac. Famed among peoples was my father, a noble warrior in the forefront of battle. Ecthio was he called. Many a winter he endured ere in age he departed from his courts. Full well doth every wise man remember him far and wide over the earth. With friendly purpose are we now seeking thy master, the son of Hilfdane, defender of his people. Be thou kindly in counsel to us. A mighty errand have we to him renowned, the Lord of the Danes. And there a certain matter shall not be kept secret, as I think. Thou knowest if so it be, as in truth we have heard tell, that among the Scyldings, I know not what deadly thing, a doer of deeds of secret hatred, on dark nights in dreadful wise makes plain his monstrous malice, shame of men, and felling of the dead. Concerning that with ungrudging heart I can give counsel to Hrothgar how he, wise and good, will overcome his enemy. Should there ever come change or betterment in the torment of his woes, how those burning griefs will be assuaged, or else forever after he will endure a time of tribulation and dire need, while there in its high places abides the best of houses. The watchman spake, sitting there upon his steed, fearless servant of the king. A man of keen wit who takes good heed will discern the truth in both words and deeds. My ears assure me that here is a company of friendly mind towards the Lord of the Scyldings. Go ye forward, bearing your weapons and your armor. I will guide you. My young esquires, moreover, I will command honorably to guard your ship, your new tarred vessel upon the sand, against every foe, until with its timbers and its wreathed prow it bears back again over the streams of the sea, its beloved master to the weather mark. To such a doer of good deeds it shall surely be granted that he will come sound and whole through this onset of war. They went then marching forth. Their fleet vessel remained now. Deep-bosomed ship, it rode upon its hawser fast to the anchor. Figures of the boar shone above cheek guards, adorned with gold, glittering, fire-tempered. Fierce and challenging war mass kept over life. The men hastened, striding together until they could descry the builded hall, adorned bright with gold. Foremost it was in fame of all houses under heaven, among the dwellers upon earth, wherein the mighty one abode. The light of it shone over many a land. Then that warrior bold pointed out to them, clear to see, the court of proud men, that they may march straight thither. Then the warrior turned his horse, and thereupon spake these words: Time it is for me to go. May the Almighty Father in his grace keep you safe upon your quest. To the sea will I go, against unfriendly host, my watch to keep. The street was paved in stone patterns. The path gilded those men together. There shone corselets of war, hard hand-linked. Bright ring of iron rang in their harness. As in their dread gear they went striding straight into the hall. Weary of the sea, they sat their tall shields, bucklers wondrous hard, against the wall of the house, and sat then on the bench. Corselets rang, war harness of men. Their spears stood piled together. Seaman's gear, ash-hafted, grey-tipped with steel. Well furnished with weapons was the iron-mailed company. There then a knight in proud array asked those men of battle concerning their lineage, Whence bear ye your plated shields, your grey shirts of mail, your massed helms and throng of warlike shafts? I am Hrothgar's herald and servant. Never have I seen so many men of outland folk, more proud of bearing. I deem that in pride, not in the ways of banished men, nay, in greatness of heart ye have come seeking Hrothgar. To him then, strong and bold, the proud prince of the wind-living folk replied. Words he spake in answer, stern beneath his helm. We are companions of Hygelac's table. Beowulf is my name. To the son of Healfdene, glorious king, I wish to tell mine errand to thy lord, if he will vouchsafe to us that we may approach him in his excellence. Wulfgar spake, Noble prince of the Wendels was he. His heart's temper, his prowess and wisdom, were known to many a man. This will I inquire of the friend of the Danes, lord of the Scyldings, giver of rings, concerning thy quest, even as thou prayest, and such answer quickly declare to thee as he in his goodness is minded to give. Then swiftly he returned to where Hrothgar sat, old and hoar-headed amid the company of knights. Valiant he strode until he stood by the shoulder of the lord of the Danes. Well he knew the customs of courtly men. Wulfgar spake to his beloved lord, here are now landed, come from far over the encircling sea, noble men of the Geats, the chiefest of them men of arms named Beowulf. They beg to exchange words with thee, my king. Do not make denial to them of thy fair answer. O gracious Hrothgar, in the harness of war they seem well to merit the esteem of men. Assuredly a man of worth is the captain, who hath led these men of battle to this land. Hrothgar spake, protector of the Scyldings. I knew him while he was yet a boy. His sire of old was called Ecthio. To him Hrethel of the Geats gave as bride his only daughter. It is his son that has now here come dauntless, seeking a friend and patron. Voyagers by sea, such as have borne gifts and treasures for the Geats, thither in token of goodwill, have since reported that he hath in the grasp of his hand the might and power of 30 men, valiant in battle. Holy God has sent him to us in his mercy, even to the West Danes, as is my hope, against the terror of Grendel. To this good knight I shall offer precious gifts to reward the valor of his heart. Make haste now, bid them enter here and look upon the proud company of our kin here gathered together. Tell them too in words of greeting that they are welcome to the people of the Danes. Then Wulfgar went towards the door of the hall, and standing within he pronounced these words, My victorious lord, chieftain of the East Danes, bade me to say to you that he knows your lineage, and that with your dauntless hearts ye come as welcome guests to him over the surges of the sea. Now may ye go in your harness of battle beneath your mast helms to look upon Hrothgar. Leave here your warlike shields and deadly shafted spears to await the issue of your words. Then that lordly man arose, and about him many a warrior, a valiant company of knights. Some remained behind, guarding their gear of war, even as the bold captain commanded. They went with speed together. The knight guiding them beneath the roof of Heorot. Stern beneath his helm strode Beowulf until he stood beside the hearth. Words he spake, his mail gleamed upon him, woven like stuff and crafty web by the cunning of smiths. Hail to thee, Hrothgar! I am Hygelac's kinsman and vessel. On many a renowned deed I ventured in my youth. To me of my native soil the matter of Grendel became known and revealed. Travelers upon the sea report that this hall, fairest of houses, stands empty and to all men useless, as soon as the light of evening is hid beneath heaven's pale. Thereupon the worthiest of my people and wise men counseled me to come to thee, King Hrothgar, for they had learned the power of my body's strength. They had themselves observed it. When I had returned from the toils of my foes, earning their enmity, were 5 I bound, making desolate the race of monsters. And when I slew amid the waves by night the water demons, enduring bitter need, avenging the afflictions of the wind-loving Geats, destroying those hostile things, woe they had asked for. And now I shall with Grendel, with that fierce slayer, hold debate alone with the ogre. Now therefore will I ask of thee, Prince of the glorious Danes, defender of the Sealings, this one boon, that thou deny not to me, O protector of warriors, fair lord of peoples, since I have come from so far away, that only I may, and may proud company of men, this dauntless company, make Heorot clean. I have learned, too, that this fierce slayer in his savagery to weapons gives no heed. I too then will disdain, so love me, Hygelac, my liege lord, to bear either sword or wide shield, yellow boss to battle. Nay, with my gripe I shall seize upon the foe, and engage in mortal contest with hate against hate. There to the judgment of the Lord shall he resign himself, whom death doth take. Methinks he will, if he is permitted to have the mastery, in this hall of battle, devour without fear the Gothic knights, the strong band of Rethmen, as he oft hath done. No need will thou have in burial to shroud my head, but he will hold me reddened with gore if death takes me. A bloody corse will bear, will think to taste it, and departing alone will eat unpitying, staining the hollows of the moors. No need will thou have any longer to care for my body's sustenance. Send back to Hygelac, should battle take me, the mail shirt most excellent that defends my breast, fairest of raiment. Hrethel bequeathed it, the work of Wayland. Fate goeth ever as she must. Hrothgar made answer, protector of the Sealings, my friend Beowulf, for my deserts and for the grace that once I showed thou hast now come to us. Thy father with the sword ended one of the greatest feuds. Heath Olaf with his own hands he slew among the Wilfings. Then the kindred of the Wederus could no longer keep him from the dread of war. Thence he sought the South Danish folk over the surges of the sea, even the glorious Sealings, when first I ruled the people of the Danes, and in youth governed a spacious realm, treasury and stronghold of mighty men. Heorgard was then dead, mine elder brother. No longer lived the son of Healfdene, better was he than I. Thereafter that feud I settled with payment, sending to the Wilfings over the backs of the sea ancient treasures. Oaths he swore to me. Grievous to my heart it is to recount to any among men what humiliations in Heorot, what dreadful deeds of malice Grendel hath wrought for me in the hatred of his heart. Diminished is the company of my hall, the ranks of my warriors. Fate hath swept them into dire clutch of Grendel. God alone may easily hinder from his deeds that savage foe. Full often have champions of war, flushed with drink over the goblets of ale, made vaunt that in the drinking hall they would meet the warlike might of Grendel with the terror of their blades. Thereafter was this mead hall, my royal house, on the morrow tide red with dripping blood when day shone forth. All the bench boards drenched with blood, and the hall with dew of swords. The fewer loyal hearts and bold men tried in war had I, for death had taken them. Sit now at the feast, and when the time comes, turn thy thought to victory for the Rethmen, as thy heart may urge thee. Then for the young Geatish knights together in company, a bench was made free in the drinking hall. There to their seats went those stout of heart, resplendent in their strength, and a squire his office heeded, he that bore in hand the jewelled ale goblet, and poured gleaming out the sweet drink. Ever and anon the minstrel sang clear in Heorot. There was mirth of mighty men, no little assembly of the tired valor of Danes and Wetterus. Unferth Spank, son of Ilgef, who sat at the feet of the Lord of the Scyldings, a spell to bring forth strife he loosed. The quest of Beowulf come thus boldly over the sea gave to him deep displeasure, for it was not to his liking that any other man in this world below should ever accomplish more honor under heaven than he himself. Art thou that Beowulf who strove with Breca in swimming upon the wide sea, that time when ye two in pride made trial of the waters, and for a rash vaunt hazarded your lives upon the deep? No man, friend or foe, could dissuade you two from that venture, fraught with woe, when with limbs ye rode the sea. There ye embraced with your arms the streaming tide, measuring over the streets of the sea with swift play of hands, gliding over the ocean. The abyss was in tumult with the waves and the surges of the winter. 7 nights ye two labored in the water's realm. He overmatched thee in swimming. He had greater strength. Then on the morrow tide the billows bore him away to the Rithboam's land, where he, beloved of his people, sought for his own dear soil, the land of the Brandings and his fair stronghold. Where a folk he ruled his strong town and his rings. All his vaunt truly did he, the son of Beanston, accomplish against thee. Wherefore I expect for thee a yet worse encounter. Thou, though mayest in every place have proved valiant in the rush of battle and grim war, if thou darest all the night-long hour nigh at hand to wait for Grendel. Beowulf spoke, the son of Ecgtheow. Lo, my friend, Unferth, flushed with drink, thou hast spent much speech, telling of Breca and his feat. Truth I accounted that greater prowess in the sea had I, more labors in the waves than any other man. We two agreed, being boys, and made our vaunt, being yet both in the youth of life, that we would hazard our lives out upon the ocean, and that we accomplished even so. Naked we held our swords, hard in our hands. When we two rode the sea, we thought thus to defend us against monstrous fish. Never at all could he swim away from me afar upon the streaming waves, more swift than I upon the deep. For him I would not go. Then we two were together in the sea 5 nights' space, until the tide drove us asunder, and the boiling waters, the coldest of storms, glooming night, a wind from the north cave, with cruel onslaught against us. Rough were the waves. The heart of the fishes of the sea were stirred, and there the corslet of my flesh, linked stoutly wrought by hand, gave me aid against my foes. My woven raiment of battle lapped my breast adorned with gold. To the abyss drew me a destroying foe accursed. Fast the grim thing held me in its gripe. Nonetheless, it was granted to me to find that fell slayer with point of warlike sword. The battle's onset destroyed that strong beast of the sea through this my hand. Thus many a time deadly assailants menaced me grievously. With my beloved sword I ministered to them, as it was meet. In no wise had they joy in that banqueting, foul doers of ill deed, that they should devour me sitting round and feast nigh to the bottoms of the sea. Nay, upon the morrow they lay upon the shore in the flotsam of the waves, wounded with sword thrust, by blades done to death, so that never thereafter might they about the steep straits molest the passage of seafaring men. Light came from the east, God's beacon bright. The waves were lulled, so that I could descry the headlands out to sea and windy cliffs. Fate oft saveth a man not doomed to die, when his valor fails not. Howbeit it was my lot with sword to slay 9 sea demons. Never have I heard beneath the vaults of heaven of more bitter fighting by night, nor of a man more unhappy in the torrents of the sea. And nonetheless, from the grappling of accursed creatures, my life I saved, weary of my venture. Then the sea, the tide upon the flood, with boiling waters swept me away to the land of the fens. Never have I heard men tell of thee any such cruel deeds of war and dreadful work of swords. Brecca never yet in the play of battle, nay, neither of you twain, hath accompanied so daring a deed with blood-stained blade. Yet little do I glory in it. For though thou wert the slayer of thine own brethren, thy nearest kin, for that thou shalt in hell suffer damnation, though thy wits be good, I tell thee for a truth sung of Ecglaf, there never would Grendel have achieved so many a deed of horror, fierce slayer and dire, in thy lord's despite, humbling him in Heorot, if thy heart and soul were thus fell in war, as thou thyself accountest. Nay, he hath found that the need not greatly dread avenging wrath, not dire pursuit of swords from your people of the conquering Scyldings. Forced toll he levies, none he spares of the folks of the Danes, but followeth his lust, slays and ravages, for no vengeance looking from the Spear-Danes. But I shall now ere long in battle oppose to him the might and valor of the Geats. He will return who may, triumphant to the mead, when the light of the morning on the following day, the sun in skiey robes, shines from the south over the children of men. Then in joyful hour was the giver of rich gift, gray-haired, bold in battle. Prince of the glorious Danes, he believed that succor was at hand. Shepherd of his people, he had discerned in Beowulf's words the moveless purpose of his mind. There was laughter of mighty men, the din of singing. Sweet were the words. Wealhtheow went forth, Hrothgar's queen, mindful of courtesy. With gold adorned she greeted the men in the hall, and then the cup she offered. Noble lady, first to the guardian of the East Danes' realm, and wished him joy at the ale quaffing of his liege's love. He, king victorious in delight, partook of feast and flowing bowl. Then the lady of the Helmings went to and fro to every part of that host, to tried men and young proffering the jeweled vessels, until in due time it chanced that she, ring-laden queen of courteous heart, to Beowulf bore the cup of mead, and hailed the Geatish knight, and gave thanks to God in words of wisdom, that her desire was granted to her, that she might trust in any man for comfort in their miseries. That cup he then received, grim warrior, at Wealhtheow's hand, and thereupon his heart being kindled with desire of battle, fair words he said. Thus Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow, spake. This did I purpose when I went upon the sea, and sat me in my sea boat among my company of knights, that I wholly would accomplish the desire of your people, or would fall among the slain fast in the clutches of the foe. A deed of knightly valor I shall achieve, or else in this mead hall await my latest day. These words well pleased that lady, the proud utterance of the Geat. With gold adorned she went, fair queen of the people, to her seat beside her lord. Then again, as before, were valiant words spoken within the hall. The host was in joyful hour. There was clamor of folk triumphant, until on a sudden the son of Hilfdane desired to seek his nightly couch. He knew that onslaught against that lofty hall had been purposed in the demon's heart from the hours when they could see the light of the sun, until darkling night in the shapes of mantling shadows came gliding over the world, dark beneath the clouds. All the host arose, then man saluted man, Hrothgar and Beowulf. All hail the king him wished, giving to him the keeping of his house of wine, and this word he spake. Never have I ere this, since I could lift hand and shield, to any other man save thee here, and now entrusted the mighty dwelling of the Danes. Have it now and hold it, fairest of houses. Remember thy renown, show forth thy might and valor, keep watch against our foes. No lack shall there be thee to defy of thy desires, if thou dost achieve this deed of valor and yet live. Then Hrothgar departed, defender of the Scyldings. With his company of knights forth from the hall, their warrior lord would follow Wealhtheow his queen as the companion of his couch. The king of glory, as men now heard, had appointed one to guard the hall against Grendel. Now a special office he held in the service of the Danes, having taken on himself a watch against monstrous things. Verily the Geatish knight trusted confidently in his valiant strength, God's grace to him. Then his corslet of iron things he doffed, and the helm from his hand, and gave his jeweled sword, best of iron wrought things, to his esquire, and bade him have care of his gear of battle. Then the brave man spake, Beowulf of the Geats, a speech of proud words ere he claimed upon his bed. No whit do I account myself in my warlike stature a man more despicable in deeds of battle than Grendel doth himself. Therefore I will not with sword give him the sleep of death, although I well could. Naught doth he know of gentle arms, that he should wield weapon against me, or hew my shield, fierce though he be in savage deeds. Nay, we too shall this fight reject the blade, if he dare have recourse to warfare without weapons. And then let the foreseeing God, the Holy Lord, adjudge the glory to whichever side him seemeth meet. Then he laid him down, that valiant man, and his face was buried in the pillow at his cheek, and about him many a gallant rover was stretched upon his couch within the hall. None of them believed that he would ever return to the sweetness of his home, that the strong places of the free people where he was nurtured. Nay, they had learned that a bloody death had ere now in that hall of wine swept away all too many of the Danish folk. Yet God granted them a victorious fortune in battle, even to those Geatish warriors, yea, succor and aid, that they, through the prowess of one and through his single might, overcame their enemy. Manifest in this truth that mighty God had ruled the race of men through all the ages. There came in darkling night passing, a shadow walking. The spearmen slept whose duty was to guard the gabled hall. All except one, well known it was that men that, if God willed it not, the robber fiend no power had to drag them to the shades. But he there wakeful in his foes' despite abode, grim-hearted the debate of war. He came now from the moor under misty fells, Grendel walking. The wrath of God was on him. Foul thief, he proposed to the race of men someone to snare with that lofty hall. Under cloud he went to where he knew full well that house of wine was, hall of men with gold bright plated. Not the first adventure that he had made, seeking for Hrothgar's home. Never in days of life, before nor later, with harder fortune guards in hall he found. He came now to the house. A man-shaped journeying of man's mirth shorn. The door at once sprang back, barred with forged iron. When claws he laid on it, he wrenched then wide, baleful with raging heart, the gaping entrance of the house. Then swift on the bright patterned floor that demon paced. In angry mood he went, and from his eyes stood forth, most like to flame unholy night. He in house espied there many a man asleep, a throng of kinsmen side by side, a band of youthful knights. Then his heart laughed. He thought that he would sever, ere daylight came, dread slayer, for each one of these life from their flesh, since now such hope had chanced of feasting full. It was no longer doomed that he yet more might the race of men devour beyond that night. There stern and strong the kinsmen of Hygelac watched and how that foul thief with his fell clutches would now play his part. and that the slayers was not minded to delay. Not he, but swiftly at his first turn seized a sleeping man, rending him unopposed, biting the bone joints, drinking the blood from veins, great gobbets gorging down. Quickly he took all of the lifeless things to be his food, even feet and hands. Onward and nearer he stepped, seized them with hands, the valiant-hearted man upon his bed. Against him the demon scratched his claw, and swiftly he laid hold on it. And with hate in heart he propped him on his arm. Straightway the master of evil deeds perceived that never had he met with this world and earth's four corners on any other man a mightier gripe of hand. In heart and soul he grew afraid, yet none the sooner could he escape. His desire would haste away. He would to hiding flee, seeking the devil's throng. Not now were his dealings there such as he ever before in the days of his life had found. Then the good knight, kinsman of Hygelac, remembered his words at evening. Upright he stood and grappled fast against him. Fingers cracked, out would the ogre go. Forth strode the knight, the accursed thing would fain. Could he have done so? Go free afar and thence flee to hollows in the fens? He felt the power of his fingers and his fierce foe's grasps. It was a woeful journey that the fell robber had to Heorot made. The royal hall rang. On all the Danes, dwellers in the town about, on each bold heart there fell a ghastly fear. Wroth were they both, fierce rivals in the keeping of the house. The hall was full of noise. Great wonder was it then that the house of wine endured their battling, so that it fell not to the ground, fair dwelling upon earth, but stout was it smithied within and without with bonds of iron cunningly contrived. There where they fought in wrath was not a bench adorned with gold for the drinking of mead, nor cast from its place upon the floor, so the tale tells. Never aforetime had the Scylding counsellors foreseen that any among men could in any wise shatter in its goodliness adorned with ivory, nor dismember it with craft, unless the embrace of fire should engulf it in swathing smoke. Clamor new arose ever and anon. Dread fear came upon the northern Danes, upon each of those that from the hall heard the cries, the adversary of God singing his ghastly song, no chant of victory, the prisoner of hell bewailing his grievous hurt. Fast was he held by that most strong in body's might in that day of men's life here. In no wise would that captain of men permit that deadly guest to go forth alive, nor did he account the days of his life of use to any man. There were many a night of Beowulf drew swift his ancient blade, wishing to defend the life of his lord and master and renowned prince, if so he might. They knew it not, young warriors brave-hearted, as they fought that fight, and on each side sought to hew the foe and pierce his vitals, that doer of evil none upon earth of swords of war would touch, not the most excellent of things of iron, not so, for he had laid a spell upon all victorious arms and upon every blade. On that day of his life, on earth unhappy, was fated to be the sending forth of his soul. And far was that alien spirit to fare in the realm of fiends. Now did he perceive who aforetime had wrought the race of men many a grief apart and wrong. He had a feuding with God, that his body might not avail him, but the valiant kinsman of Hygelac had him by the arm. Hateful to each was the other's life, a grievous hurt of bodies that fierce slayer and dire now endured. A mighty wound was seen upon the shoulder. The sinews sprang apart. The joints of his bones burst. To Beowulf was vouchsafed triumph in battle. Thence now must Grendel flee stricken to death to hide beneath the slopes of the fens, seeking his joyless haunts. Thereby the more surely did he know that the end of his life was coming to pass, and the hours of his days were numbered. That deadly contest was over, and achieved was the desire of all the Danes. In that hour had one come from afar, wise and stout of heart, purged the hall of Hrothgar and redeemed it from the malice of Grendel. He rejoiced in his deeds that might, in his glory of his prowess. The chief of those Geatish men had accomplished all his proud vaunt before the East Danes, and had healed, moreover, all the woe and the tormenting sorrow that they had elsewhere suffered, and must of necessity endure no little bitterness. Of this a clear token it was when the warrior bold had set the hand, the arm, and the shoulder beneath the widespread roof. There was all Grendel's clutching limb entire. Then have I heard that in the morning many a warlike knight had gathered about his patron's hall. The chieftains of the people had come from far and near over the distant ways that marvel to behold, and the footprints of that hated one. No grief for his departure from life felt any of those men who looked upon the trail of inglorious fight, marking how sick at heart he had dragged his footsteps, bleeding out his life, from thence away defeated and death doomed to the water demon's mere. That the waters boiled with blood, and the dread turmoil of the waves was all blended with hot gore and seethed with battle's crimson. Therein doomed to die he plunged, and bereft of joys in his retreat among the fens, yielded up his life and heathen soul. There hell received him. Thence the ancient men of the court, and many a young man too, fared back from the joyous riding, from the mere upon their steeds in pride, knights upon horses white. There was the renown of Beowulf recalled. Many a man and oft declared that south or north, the two seas between, was there no other beneath the encircling sky more excellent among bearers of the shield, more worthy of knightly rule. Yet verily they did not in anything belittle their lord and patron, gracious Hrothgar. Nay, a good king was he. At whiles those warriors bold set their bay horses of renowned excellence to gallop and run in rivalry, where the pass over earth seemed good to them. At whiles a servant to the king, a man laden with proud memories, who had lays in mind and recalled a host of multitude of tales of old, word followed word, each truly linked to each. This man in his turn began with skill to treat the quest of Beowulf, and in flowing verse to utter his ready tale, interweaving words. He recounted all that he had heard tell concerning Sigmund's work of prowess, many a strange tale, the arduous deeds of the well-sung, and his adventures far and wide, deeds of vengeance and of enmity, things that the children of men knew not fully, save only Fitela, who was with him. In those days he was wont to tell something of such matters, brother to his sister's son, even as they were comrades in need in every desperate strait. Many of the giant race had they laid low with swords. For Sigmund was noised far after his dying day no little fame, since he, staunch in battle, had slayed the serpent, the guardian of the horde. Yea, he, the son of noble Half, beneath the horror rocked alone, had dared a perilous deed. Fitela was not with him. None the less it was his fortune that the sword pierced through the serpent of strange shape, and stood fixed in the wall, goodly blade of iron. The dragon died a cruel death. The fierce slayer had achieved by his valor that he might at his own will enjoy the hoard of rings. The boat upon the sea he laded and bore to the bosom of his ship the bright treasures. The offspring of the whales was he, the dragon melted in its heat. He was far and wide of adventures the most renowned throughout the people of mankind for his works of prowess, that prince of warriors. Thereby did he aforetime grow great. After the valor of Hiermond, his might and prowess had failed, and he, in the lands of the Jutes, was betrayed into the power of his enemies and swiftly sent to death. Too long did the surges of sorrow beat upon him. A mortal affliction he became unto his people and to all his nobles. Yet in time gone by many a wise man had oft lamented the exile of that stout-hearted one, to whom they looked for the cure to their ills, believing that this son of their king was like to advance in virtue and inherit the qualities of his father, to keep well the people, the treasures of the fenced stronghold, and the realm of his vassals, the land of the Scyldings. But he there now among them, the kinsman of Hygelac, had proved more pleasing in the eyes of all men and of all his friends. On that other's heart wickedness had seized. Again at wiles and rivalry upon their steeds they measured their dusty roads. Now the light of morning was advanced in haste far upon its course. Many a knight of stout heart went unto that lofty hall to see the marvels strange. So too the king himself, from his bedchamber, guardian of hoards of rings, renowned for his largesse, strode in majesty amid a great company, and with him the queen with her train of maidens paced the path unto the mead hall. Hrothgar spake. He was come to the hall and stood upon the steps and looked upon the steep roof bright with gold and upon Grendel's hand. For this night be thanks swiftly given to Almighty God. Much evil and many woes have I endured from Grendel. Ever may God perform marvel upon marvel, Lord of glory. It was but a little while ago that I hoped never in all my life to find healings of any of my woes, when this best of houses stood stained with blood and dripping with fresh gore. That was a grief far-reaching to every one of my counselors, who hoped not that they ever in the world should defend this stronghold from the people of the land, from the malice of demons and of devils. Now hath one young man, through the might of the Lord, wrought a deed that we none of us with our wisdom were able to compass. Lo, this may she say, if yet she lives, whosoever among women did bring forth this son among the peoples of the earth, that the eternal God was gracious to her in her childbearing. Now, Beowulf, best of men, I will cherish thee in my heart even as son. Hereafter keep thou well this new kinship. Lack shalt thou have of none of thy desires in the world, of such as lie in my power. Full oft for less have I granted a reward and honorable gifts for my treasure to a humbler man and to one less eager in battle. Thou hast achieved for thyself with thine own deeds that thy glory shall live forever to all ages. The Almighty reward thee with good, even as he hitherto hath done. Beowulf spake, the son of Ecgtheow. We with all good will achieved the deed of prowess in battle, and the perilous strength of the unknown thing we dared. Yet rather had I wished that thou might see him here, Grendel himself, thy foe in his array sick unto death. I purposed in hard bonds swiftly to bind him upon his deathbed, that by the grasp of my hands he should be forced to lie struggling for life, had not his body escaped me. I might not, since it was not the will of God, restrain his flight. I did not cleave fast enough for that unto my mortal foe. Too overwhelming was the might of that fiend in body's movement. None the less, he hath left behind his trail, his hand and arm and shoulder. Yet in no wise thus hath that unhappy one purchased him relief. None the longer thereby will he live, that doer of evil wrong, burdened by his sins. Nay, pain hath closely gripped him in a grasp he cannot flee, in bonds of anguish. There must he, stained with sin, await the great day of doom, and the sentence that the bright judge will pronounce upon him. Then was the king of Ecglaf a man more sparing of his words and vaunting speech concerning his deeds of war, now that the royal company through the valor of Beowulf looked upon to the lofty roots at the hand and fingers of their foe. At the tip was each one of the stout nails most like unto steel. Grievous and cruel were the spurs upon the hand of that savage thing. All agreed that there was not so hard, no iron proven of old, that would touch him in such wise as to hurt that demon's blood-stained murdering hand. Then was it ordered that Heorot should swiftly be adorned within by the hands of men. Many were there, men and women, who arrayed that hall of revelry and welcome. Glittering with gold tapestries shone along the walls, many a marvelous thing to see for every one of those that on such things loves to look. Sorely shattered was all that shining house within. From their iron bars the hinges of the doors were wrenched away. The roof alone was preserved, free from all injury. When that fierce slayer, stained with deeds of wrong, had turned to flee, despairing of his life. No easy thing is it to escape, let him strive who will. Nay, he shall come at last to a place appointed by inevitable fate, made ready for all those who have life, the sons of men dwelling upon earth, where his body still upon its bed of rest shall sleep after the feast. Now was it the time and hour the son of Hilfdane went to the hall. The king himself would partake of the feast. Never have I heard tell that a people was thronged more numerous, or bore itself more gallantly than they did then upon their lord and friend. They went in splendor to their seats, rejoicing in plenty. Meetly they partook of many a cup of mead. High in heart were the kinsmen in that lofty hall, Hrothgar, and Hrothulf. Heorot was filled with friends, and in no wise did the Scyldings work treachery as yet. Then did the son of Hilfdane give to Beowulf a golden ensign as reward of his victory, an embroidered banner upon a staff, and a helm and corslet, a renowned and treasured sword. There many saw laid before that warrior. The cup Beowulf received there in the hall. No need had he to feel shamed by the riches given unto him before the assembled bowmen. Few men have I heard tell gave ever to another seated at the drinking in more loving wise for such precious gifts. Round the helmet's crown the wale wound about it with wire, kept guard without over the head, that no sword that leaves the file of smith, hardened in the rain of blows, might cruelly injure it, when the eager warrior beneath his shield should go against his foes. Then the Lord of Men commanded that 8 horses with gold-plated bit and bridle be led into the hall, in amid the courts. Upon one of those there lay a saddle adorned with cunning colors and rich with gems. The seat in battle had it been of the High King, in days when the son of Hilfdane would play the play of swords. Never had the valor of that far-tamed lord failed in the front of war, when slain men fell. And thereupon the warden of the servants of Ing granted unto Beowulf possessions of both, of weapons and of steeds. He bade him use them well. Thus right manfully did the renowned king, rich lord of men, reward the impetuous deeds of battle with treasures and with horses, in such wise that no man find faults in him who will justly speak the truth. Moreover, the Lord of Men to each of those that with Beowulf had made the passage of the sea gave as they sat at their mead a rich gift in heirloom, and commanded that atonement should be paid with gold for that one whom Grendel wickedly had slain, even as he would have more, had not the foreseeing God and the courage of that man fended fate from them. God was Lord then of all the race of men, even as he yet is. Wherefore is understanding in the heart that taketh thought in every time and place the best. Much must he endure of sweet and bitter, who long time here in these days of trouble enjoyeth life in the world. There was song, and the voices of men gathered together before the leader of the host of Healfdene. There the harp was touched to mirth, and many a lay recalled. Then, according to his office, Hrothgar's minister touched upon a tale to the liking of those upon the benches drinking their mead within the hall. He told of the sons of Finn, when the sudden onslaught came upon them, the hero of the Halfdanes, Nafe of the Scyldings, fell by fate in the Frisian slaughter. Of a truth, Hildeburh had little cause to praise the loyalty of the Jutes. By no fault of hers she was robbed of her loved ones in the class of shields, of brothers, and of sons. They fell according to their doom, slayed by the spear. A woeful lady she. Not without cause did that daughter of Hawk lament the decree of fate, when that morning came whereon she might behold beneath the light of day the cruel slaying of her kin, where he aforetime had possessed the greatest earthly joy. There had war taken all Finn's champions, save few alone, so that he might by no means on that field of meeting wage to an end the fight with Hengist, nor in battle rest the sad remnant from the captain of the prince. Nay, they offered terms to him that he would make all free for them another court, both hall and throne, that they should have possession and the half thereof, starting with the sons of the Jutes, and that the giving of treasure the son of Folkwalda, should they each day honor the Danes, should with the rings and hoarded jewels of plated gold rejoice the company of Hengist, no whit less than he want in the drinking hall to enhearten the men of the Frisian race. Thus on both sides they confirmed a binding treaty of peace. To Hengist Finn in full and without reserve declared with solemn oath that he would, with the advice of his counselors, honorably entreat the sad remnant, and that there should be no man ever recall it to mind, not though they served the slayer of him who before had given them rings, being now without a lord, for such was their necessity. And moreover, any of the men of Frisia should with grievous words recall of memory that deadly feud, then should it be expiated by the edge of the sword. A pyre was made ready, and gleaming gold brought forth from the treasury, that best of the heroes in battle of the warrior Scyldings was raised upon the funeral pile. Upon that pyre was plain to see blood-drenched corslet, swine crest all made of gold, boar hard as iron, many a lord by wounds destroyed, one and all they had fallen in the slaughter. Then Hildeburh bade that her own son be committed to the flames upon the pyre of Naif, there to burn their bones, setting him upon the funeral pyre at his uncle's side. The lady mourned, bewailing them in song. The warrior was mounted upon high, up to the clouds swirled that mightiest of destroying fires, roaring before the burial mound, consumed were their heads, their gaping wounds burst open, the cruel hurts of the body, and the blood sprang forth. Flame devoured them all, hungriest of spirits, all that in that place war had taken of either people, their glory had passed away. Then the warriors, bereft of their friends, departed to look upon the dwellings, to see the Frisian land, their homes and mighty town. Still Hengist abode with Finn that blood-stained winter, keeping fully to his word. He thought of his own land, even though he could not speed upon the sea his ship with curving beak. The deep was tossed in storm and battled with the wind. Winter locked the waves in icy bond, until another year came to the dwellings of men, even as it doth yet, those winters gloriously fair that unchangingly observed the seasons. Now past was winter, and fair the bosom of the earth. The exile, the guest of Fenn, was eager to be gone from those courts. Therein more thought did he give to vengeance for his sorrow than to the passage of the sea, pondering if he might again achieve a clash of wrath, wherein he would in his heart remember the children of the Jutes. Wherefore he did not refuse the homage when Hunlef's son laid the light of battle, that best of swords, upon his lap. The edges thereof the Jutes knew full well, and so too in turn cruel destruction by the sword came upon Finn in his very hall, when Guthlef and Oslaf, after their journey over the sea, had recounted their sorrow and that deadly onslaught, and complained their wealful lot. The restless spirit within the breast might not be restrained. Then was the hall reddened with the lifeblood of their foes, and Finn too slain, the king amid his company, and the queen was taken. The bowmen of the Scyldings bore to their ships all the wealth of the house of the kings of the earth, all such as they could find of jewels and cunning gems. Over the ways of the sea they bore that royal lady to the land of the Danes and brought her to her people. The lay was sung, the minstrel's tale at an end. Merry noise raised out once more, loud and clear the sound of revelry upon the seats. The cupbearers gave out wine from vessels wondrous wrought. Now came Wealthiau forth, and wearing many a golden ring, she went to where those proud men sat, both uncle and brother's son. Still was their kinshipless love between them, and each to the other true. There too Unferth, the king sage, sat at the feet of the Scyldings' lord. Each man among them trusted in his mind's temper that he might had a mighty heart, albeit he had not in the play of swords dealt mercy to his kin. Then spake the lady of the Scyldings, receive now this cup, dear lord of mine, giver of rich gifts. In happy hour be thou, from whom men give love and gifts of gold, and to the Geats speak with kindly words as behoves a man. To the Geats be gracious, and forget not to give of those things that now thou hast gathered from near and far. I have heard men say that thou wert in mind to take this warrior for thy son. Lo, Herat is cleansed, this shining hall where rings are dealt. Dispose while yet thou mayest of many a reward, and to thy kin after thee leave thy people and thy realm, when thou must go forth to look upon thy fate, Hrothulf. I know well my nephew fair, that he will in honor cherish those of our youth. If thou, dear master, the Scyldings, sooner than he do leave this world, methinks that he will with good repay our sons. If he recalleth all those deeds of grace that we did unto him, to his pleasure and his honor, while yet he was a child. Then turned she to the seat where sat her sons, Rethric and Rothmund, and the children of mighty men, young warriors all, were gathered together. There beside those brethren twain that brave heart sat, Beowulf of the Geats. To him was the cup borne, the fiendish, and friendship offered in fair words, and the twisted gold was brought forth with all good will, 2 armlets, a mantle, and rings. And the mightiest of torques that I have heard was ever upon the neck of man on earth. Beneath the light of day I have heard never men tell of any better treasure in the hoards of the mighty, since Hama bore away to the bright city the necklace of the Brosings, jewel, and precious vessel. He fled from the ensnaring hate of Eomeric and chose the counsels of the eternal faith. This Siglet Hygelak, king of the Geats, of the blood of Swerting, had with him on that last day, when beneath his standard he defended his treasure and fought for the spoil of battle. Fate took him for that he was, in his pride, had challenged his own ruin and the enmity of the Frisian folk. This fair thing of precious stones he bore now over the bowl of the seas, a king in his might. Beneath his shield he fell, thus into the grasp of the Frank came now the life of the king. The armor upon his breast, and that necklet too, and warriors, albeit of less prowess in arms, there stripped the slain. When the blows of battles were done, the people of the Geats were left upon the fields of the slain. The hall was filled with clamor. These words did Wealhtheow utter before all that host she spake. Have and use well to thy good this precious thing, Beowulf, young and dear, and for thine own joy take this mantle, a thing treasured among this people, and prosper well. Show forth thyself in valor, and to these my sons be thou gracious in thy counsels, for that my heart will remember to reward thee. Thou hast achieved that far and near, all the ages long shall men esteem thee, as wide as the sea encircleth the windy walls of the land. Be thou blessed, O Prince, while thy life endures. A wealth of precious things I wish thee with good heart. Be thou to my sons kindly in deeds, possessing days of mirth. In this place is each good man to his fellow true, friendly in heart, loyal unto his liege lord. Of one mind the servants of the king, the people all ready to his will, his warriors filled with wine. Do as I bid. She went then to her seat. There was the very choice of banquets. There men drank their wine. Fate they knew not grim, appointed of old, as it had gone ready forth for many of those good men, so soon as evening came, and Hrothgar the mighty departed to his lodging and to his couch. The hall was guarded by a host of men uncounted, even as it was oft before. They stripped the benches of wooden board, and all along the hall were beds and pillows spread. Over those who had there drunk the ale, fate hung now nigh at hand, as they laid them upon their couches on the floor. At their heads they set their warlike shields, targes fashioned of wood and blazoned bright. Thereupon each bench was plain to see above each knight the helm that he had borne aloft in battle, and his coat of ringed mail, his spear valiant in the press of war. Their manner was it that seldom were they unprepared for the onslaught, be it at home or amid the host, or in either case, even at all such times as upon their liege lord need should come, a worthy company was that. Now they sank into sleep. One there was who paid grievously for his rest that eve, even as full oft had befallen them in time when Grendel had dwelt in that golden hall and wrought evil there, even until his end came and death after his deeds of wrong. Plain was it made and published abroad among men that an avenger to succeed their foe lived yet among while after that woeful strife. Grendel's mother, Ogress, fierce destroyer in the form of woman. Misery was in her heart, she who must abide in the dreadful waters of the cold streams, since Cain with the sword became the slayer of his only brother, his kinsman by his father's blood. Thereafter he departed an outlaw, branded with murder, shunning the mirth of men, abiding in the wilderness. From thence sprang many creatures doomed of old, of whom was Grendel one. Outlawed by hate as is the deadly wolf, he at Herat who found one who unsleeping awaited battle. There had the fierce slayer seized upon him, but he remembered the might of his valor, that gift which God had bounteously bestowed upon him, and he trusted in the one God for mercy, for succor, and for aid. Therewith did he vanquish that fiend, and brought low the creature of hell, wherefore that enemy of man departed, humbled, robbed of his triumph, to look upon his house of death. And now once more his mother grim-hearted, ravenous, was minded to go upon a journey full of woe to avenge the slaying of her son. Now was she come to Herat, where the Ring-Danes slept along the hall. There suddenly now old ills returned upon those knights, when into their midst crept Grendel's mother, Less indeed was the terror, even by so much as this the might of women, the terror of a woman in battle compared with armed man, when the sword with wire-bound hilt, hammer forged, its blade stained with dripping blood, trusty of edge, cleaves the opposing boar crest high upon the helm. Lo, in the hall along the benches, stout-edged swords were drawn. Many a tall shield was gripped in hand and held aloft. Of his helm no man bethought him, nor of long corslet, when that horror came upon him. She was in haste. Out and away she would be gone for the saving of her life, now that she was discovered. Swift and closed had she clutched one of those noble knights as she departed to the fen. He was unto Hrothgar of all his men of might, holding high place in his court, the one most dear to the two seats between. Proudly had he borne his shield in battle, whom now she rent upon his bed, a man established in renown. Not there was Beowulf, but to that glorious Geatish knight had other lodging been assigned after the giving of gifts. Clamor arose in Erot. Under the covering dark she took the arm she knew so well. Grief was renewed, and was come again to those dwelling places. An evil barter was that, wherein they must on either side exchange the lives of men beloved. Now was that king, aged in wisdom, warrior gray of hair, in mournful mood, knowing that his princely servant lived no more, and that most beloved of his men was dead. Swiftly was Beowulf, that warrior whom victory had blessed, summoned to the king's chamber. With the break of day he went, a noble champion with his good men about him, himself and his companions, to where that wise king abode, pondering whether haply the Almighty God will ever after these grievous tidings breed some betterment to pass. Now strode across the floor that man well tried in arms. Amid his retinue the timbers of the hall echoed, and there he addressed in speech the wise lord of the friends of Ing, asking if he had known repose according to his desire. Hrothgar made answer, the guardian of the Scyldings, ask not for news of happy hours. Sorrow is come new upon the people of the Danes. Dead is Aesir, the elder brother of Ermenlaf. My counsels were his, and his wisdom mine. At my right hand he stood, when on fatal field we fended our lives, as the ranks clashed in battle, and the boar crest rang. Such should a good man be, of noble birth, long tried indeed. Such even was Aesir. Inherit was death come upon him at the hands of a wandering murderous thing. I know not whither she hath turned her backward steps, as dreadfully she gloats over her prey, exulting in her belly's fill. That deed of war she hath avenged, that last night thou didst slay in violent wise, Grendel with thy gripings hard. For that he too long had menaced and destroyed my folk, now fell in battle, forfeiting his life, and now another hath come, a mighty doer of cruel wrong. She purposed to avenge her kin, and indeed hath carried far that feud, as many well seem to many a knight who mourns in his heart for him that gave him bounty. A heart-piercing grief and bitter. Now lieth still that hand that aforetime availed to accomplish for you all things of your desire. This have I heard dwellers in the land, lieges of mine, vassals in their halls, recount telling how they saw two such mighty stalkers of the outer places, who kept the moors, alien creatures. Of these was one, in so far as they might clear discern a shape as of a woman. The other, miscreated thing, in man's form, trod the ways of exile, albeit he was greater than any other human being. Him in days of old the dwellers of earth named Grendel. Of a father they knew not, nor whether any such was ever begotten for him among the demons of the dark. In a hidden land they dwell upon high lands wolf haunted and windy cliffs, and the perilous passes of the fens, where the mountain stream goes down beneath the shadows of the cliffs, a river beneath the earth. It is not far hence in measurement of miles that mere lies, over which there hang rimy thickets, and a wood clinging by its roots overshadows the water. There may each night be seen a wonder grim, fire upon the flood. There lives not of the children of men one so wise that he should know the death of it. Even though harried by the hounds and the ranger of the heath, the hart strong in his horns may seek that wood being hunted from afar. Sooner will he yield his life and breathe upon the shore than he will enter to hide his head therein. No pleasant place is that. Thence doth the tumult of the waves arise darkly to the clouds, when wind arouses tempest foul, until the airs are murky and the heavens weep. Now once more doth hope of help depend on thee alone. The abode as yet thou knowest not, nor the perilous place where thou canst find the creatures stained with sin. Seek it if thou durst. For that assault I will with riches reward thee, with old and precious things, even as I did ere now, yea, with twisted gold, if thou comest safe away. Beowulf made answer, the son of Ecgtheow, Grieve not, O wise one. Better it is for every man that he should avenge his friend than he should much lament. To each one of us shall come in time the end of life in the world. Let him who may earn glory ere his death. No better thing can brave knight leave behind when he lies dead. Arise, O Lord of this realm. Swiftly let us go and look upon the footprint of Grendel's kin. This I vow to thee. In no refuge shall he ever hide, neither in bosom of earth, nor in mountain forest, nor in the deeps of the sea, go where he will. For this day have patience in every woe, even as I know thou wilt. Then did the aged king leap up, and God, the mighty Lord, he thanked for that other's words. Now a horse was bridled for Hrothgar, a steed with plaited mane, and forth the wise prince went with seemly array. Forth went the company of the warriors bearing shields. Far over the path across the wolds the print of her feet, her course over the lands, was plain to see. As straight on she strode over the darkling moor, bearing the best of knights who by Hrothgar's side had ruled his house a lifeless corse. And now those men of noble race, steep stony slopes they overpassed, narrow tracks in one man pass down unfamiliar trails, past headlong crags and many a house of demons of the deep. One with a few men of hunting craft went on before to spy the land, until on a sudden he came upon the mountain trees, leaning over the poor rock, a joyless forest. Blood-stained and troubled water loomed beneath. To all the Danes, vassals of the Scylding lords, to the hearts of many a knight, grievous was it endure, and pain to all good men. When there upon the cliff above the deep they found the head of Aesir, the water surged with gore, with blood yet hot. The people gazed thereon. Ever and anon the horn cried an eager call unto the host. There sat them down the ranks of men. Now they saw about the water many of the serpent kind, strange dragons of the sea, ranging the flood, and demons of the deep lying upon the jutting slopes, even such as in the middle hours watch for those journeying anxious upon the sailing paths, serpents and beasts untamed. Back they devied, filled with wrath and hate. They had heard the clangor of the war horns braying. One, the Geatish chief, with an arrow from his bow, bereft of life and his labor in the waves, that in his vitals stood the hard and deadly dart. Therefore less swift to swim in the deeps was he, for death took him. Straightway amid the waves with boar spears, cruelly barbed, sorely was he pressed and grievously assailed, and dragged upon the jutting cliff, monstrous upheaver of the waves. Men there gazed upon this strange and terrible thing. And warriors harnessed Beowulf clad him. No whit recked he of his life. Now must his long corslet, woven for battle by the hands of smiths and cunningly adorned, make trail of the flood. Raiment skilled to guard his body's frame, that the grappling of war and the fell clutch of angry foe should not harm his life. But his head the white helm guarded, that now must stir the deep places of the mere, searching out the eddying floods, adorned with gold and clasped with rich chains, even as in days of old a weaponsmith had wrought it, marvelously fashioning it, setting thereon images of the boar, so that thereafter never blade nor swords of strife might cleave it. Nor yet was that thing to be misprized among the mighty aids which to him in his need Hrothgar's sage had lent. Runting was the name of that hafted blade. Preeminent among old and precious things was that. Of iron was the blade stained with a device of branching venom, made hard in the blood of battle. Never had it in warfare betrayed any man of those that had wielded it with hands, who had dared to achieve adventures perilous upon battlefields against their foes. This was not the first time that it was required to accomplish valorous deeds. Verily, the son of Ecglaf, mighty warrior, remembered not that which he had spoken, being filled with wine, when he lent that weapon to a swordsman worthier than was he. He durst not himself beneath the warring waves adventures his life and deeds of prowess perform. There he forfeited glory for heroic deeds, not so that other, who now had arrayed him for battle. Beowulf spake, the son of Ecgtheow. Forget not, O thou, the son renowned of Healfdene, wise prince from whom men get love and gifts of gold, now that I haste to mine adventure, that which was aforetime spoken between us, if I should at thy need lay down my life, that thou wouldst ever be to me when I was gone in father's stead, Be thou protector of the knights that follow me, the companions at my side, if battle takes me. And send thou, too, those precious gifts that thou hast given me, beloved Hrothgar, unto Hygelac. Then, by that gold, may the son of Hrethel, lord of the Geats, when he gazeth upon the treasure, perceive and understand that, finding a giver of rings, a lord endowed with generous virtue, I earned his bounty while I might, and let Unferth, that man of wide renown, receive back his olden heirloom, his sword cunningly endured with flowing lines and hard of edge. For myself glory will I earn with runting, or death take me. After these words, the prince of the wind-loving Geats hastened dauntless forth, for no answer would he wait. The surging sea engulfed that warrior bold. Thereafter, a long hour of the day, it was ere he could descry the floor. Straightway that creature that with cruel lust, ravenous and grim, had 100 seasons held that watery realm, perceived that there from on high some man was come to espy the dwelling of inhuman things. She clutched then at him, seized in her dire claws that warrior bold. No whit the sooner did she hurt his body unharmed within. The ring mail fended him about, that she might not pierce with cruel fingers the supple linked shirt that clad him in the fray. Then that she wolf of the waves to the sea bottom coming bore the mail. Clad prince unto her own abode. Even so in no wise could he wield his weapons. Wroth was he thereat. So many a monster strange beset him sorely as they swam, and many a beast of the sea with fell tusk at its hauberk tore. Fierce destroyers pressed upon him. Now then the good man perceived that he was in some abysmal hall, he knew not what, wherein no water did him any hurt, nor might the sudden onrush of the flood touch him by reason of his vaulted chamber. A light as of fire he saw with gleaming flames there shining bright. Then did that gallant one perceive the monstrous woman of the sea, she wolvish outlaw of the deep. To his warlike sword he lent a mighty force, nor did his hand hold back the blow, and on her head the weapon ring adorned sang out its lusting song of war. Soon did the invader learn that in battle shining it would not bite there nor harm her life. Nay, that blade failed the prince at need, which aforetime had endured many a clash of blows, oft time had cloven helm and harness of the doomed. This was the last venture for that dearly prized thing, wherein its glory fell. Again he made on, no laggard in valor, remembering his renowned deeds, the kinsman of Hygelac. As he fought in ire, he cast away the blade with twisted ornament and curiously bound, and upon the earth it lay steel-edged and strong. He thrust it in his strength at the grasp of his own mighty hands. Such shall a man's faith be, when he thinks to win enduring fame in war. No care for his life will trouble him. Then seized the prince of Geatish warriors Grendel's mother by her locks, rueing not the cruel deed, for his mortal foe he threw. For now he grim in war was filled with wrath, and she was bowed unto the floor. Again she swiftly answered him with like, and grappling cruelly she clutched at him. Then stumbled, desperate at heart, that warrior most strong, that champion of the host, and he in turn was thrown. Then did she bestride the invader of her hall, and drew her knife with broad and burnished blade, so thought to avenge her son and only child. Upon his shoulders hang the woven net of mail about his breast. This now his life defended, and withstood the entry of both point and edge. In that hour had the son of Ecthiel, champion of the Geats, come to ill end beneath the wind-spread earth, had not his corslet, the stout net of rings, furnished him help in fight and fray. Their holy God did rule the victory in battle. The all-seeing Lord who governeth the heavens on high, with ease did give decision to the right, when Beowulf again sprang up. Lo, among the war gear, there he beheld a sword endowed with charms of victory, a blade gigantic, old, with edges stern, the pride of men of arms, the choices of weapons that, albeit greater than any other man might have borne unto the play of war, a good and costly thing, the work of giants. Now he grasped and linked hilt, that champion of the Scyldings' cause, in fierce mood, and fell he flashed forth the ring-adorned blade. Despairing of his life, with ire he smote, and on her neck it bitter seized, and shivered the bony joints. Through and through the sword pierced her body doomed. She sank upon the floor. The sword was wet. The knight rejoiced him in the deed. The flame flashed forth. Light there blazed within, even as of heaven radiantly shines the candle of the sky. He gazed about that house, then turning, went along the wall, grasped upraised that hard weapon by the hilt, in ire undaunted the knight of Hygelac. That blade the warrior bold did not despise. Nay, he thought now swiftly to requite Grendel for those many dire assaults that he had made upon the western Danes, far oftener than that one last time, slaying in slumber the companions of Hrothgar's hearth, devouring as they slept 15 of the people of the Danes, and others as many bearing forth away a plunder hideous. For that he had given him his reward, that champion in his wrath, so that on his couch he now saw Grendel lying, weary of war, bereft of life, such hurt that he erewhile in battle got at Heorot. Far asunder sprang the corpse, when Grendel in death endured a stroke of hard sword fiercely swung. His head was cloven from him. Soon did the wise men who about Hrothgar kept watch upon the deep this sight behold, that the sea's confused waves were all mingled and were stained with blood. About the good lord old men with graying hair then said with one accord that never again they hoped to see that noble knight, or that he would come in triumph and victory to see their king renowned. Of one mind in this were many then, that the she-wolf of the sea had broken him. Now came the 9th hour of the day. The gallant Scyldings forsook the headland. He from whom they had love and gifts of gold departed hence. The strangers sat sick at heart and gazed upon the mere. They wished and hoped not that they might see the dear form of their lord. In that hour the valiant sword began, after the hot blood of battle touched it, to drip away in fearful icicles, a thing of wonder that, for it melted all, most like unto ice when the Father looseneth the bonds of frost and unlocks the enchained pools, even he who hath the governance of seasons and of times, who is the steadfast designer of the world, and those abodes no more did the prince of the wind-loving Geats take on the hoarded treasures, though many such he looked upon, save the head alone, and the hilt too, all bright with gems. The sword had melted now away, and all its woven ornament was consumed. So hot that blood, so venomous was that alien creature, that there had perished in the hall. Soon was he swimming swift, who had erewhile lived to see his enemies fall in war. Up dived he through the water, the confused waves, those regions vast, all were purged. Now that alien creature had given up the days of life in this swift passing world. Lo, to the land came swimming, dauntless of heart, the chieftain of seafaring men, rejoicing in the plunder of the sea and the huge burden of the things he bore. Then the proud company of his knights went forth to meet him, giving thanks to God, welcoming their prince with joy, that they might look upon him there unarmed. Swiftly then were loosed the helm and corslet from that valiant one. The waters of the lake lay dark and still beneath the clouds stained with death, with deadly gore. Thence in heart rejoicing they measured with their marching feet the way across the land, the road well known. Royal-hearted men from that cliff beside the deep they bore the head. A weary task for each of those most brave four must on a spear shaft there with labor grievous carry to the golden hall the head of Grendel, until anon they came striding thither, gallant, eager in arms, those 14 Geats, their liege lord with them, proudly among the company, trod the level ways about the hall of mead. Now when came striding that prince of knights daring in deeds, honored with men's praise, a mighty man of valor greeting Hrothgar. Now Grendel's head by its locks was borne upon the hall's floor, where men were drinking. Hideous in the sight of men and of the lady in their midst, a marvelous thing to look upon with eyes. Men gazed thereon. Beowulf spake, the son of Ecgtheow. Lo, this plunder of the sea, O son of Hilfdane, Silding's prince, we gladly have brought to thee, the token of my triumph, which here thou lookest on. Hardly did I save my life therein, and war beneath the water, perilously did dare that deed. Well nigh were there my days of battle ended, were God not my shield. Nor might I in that combat with Runting aught achieve, good though that weapon be. Nay, the Lord of men vouchsafed to me that on the wall I saw hanging fair a mighty sword of old. Oft and again hath he guided those bereft of friends. And that weapon now I drew, slew then in that strife when space was granted me, the guardians of the house. Thereupon that blade of war with woven ornaments was all consumed, even as the blood sprang out, gore most hot in battle. The hilt I bore thence from my foes, their evil deeds avenged, the death and torment of the Danes, even as was meant. Though this do I promise thee henceforth, that thou mayest in Heorot sleep untroubled amid the proud host of thy men, thou and each of thy knights and captains, the proven and the young, that thou wilt not from that quarter have need to fear for them. King of the Scyldings, the bane of good men's lives, as once thou didst. Then was the golden hilt given to the aged chieftain's hand, to the gray-haired leader of the host, the work of trolls of old. After the demon's fall, it passed to the dominion of the Lord of the Danes, that fabric of wondrous smiths. And since that fell-hearted foe, the enemy of God, had left this world, stained with murderer's guilt, yea, and his mother too, and passed into the keeping of the most excellent of earthly kings, the two seas between, who aforetime dealt out their wealth on seed and isle. Hrothgar made answer, looking close upon the hilt, the relic of old days, whereon was writ the beginning of the ancient strife, whereafter the flood of pouring ocean destroyed the giants' race. Evilly did they fare. That was a people alien to the eternal Lord, for that a final payment was surging water the Almighty made to them. Thereto upon the plates of purest gold was it duly marked in lettered runes, set forth and declared, for whom that sword was fashioned first, that best of things of iron with wire-wrapped hilt and snake-like ornaments. Now spake the wise king, son of Hilfdane. All were silent. Lo, this may he say who furthereth truth and justice among men. An aged ruler of his home recalleth things long ago, that this good knight was born to mastery. Thy glory is uplifted to pass down the distant ways, Beowulf, my friend. Thy glory over every folk, all which unmoved by pride thou dost possess, keeping thy valor with discerning heart. I shall to thee my vow of love accomplish, even as at first we spake together. Thou shalt unto thy lieges prove a comfort destined to endure, the help of men of might. Not such did Hermund prove to Equila's son, the Scyldings proud. He grew not to their joy, but to their bane and fall, to death and destruction of the chieftains of the Danes. In the fury of his heart he destroyed the companions of his board, the followers at his side, until he passed forth alone, renowned king, the mirth of men forsaking. Albeit the Almighty God had advanced him beyond all in the glad gifts of prowess and in might, none the less the secret heart within his breast grew cruel and bloody. He gave not things of gold unto the Danes to earn him praise. Joyless he lived on to suffer misery for that strife, the torment long lasting of his folk. Learn now from this, and understand what generous virtue is. These considered words on thy account have I here uttered, to whom have the writer's wisdom brought. Wondrous 'tis to tell how the mighty God doth apportion in his purpose deep unto the race of men wisdom, lands, and noble estate. Of all things he is Lord. At whiles the heart's thought of man of famous house he suffereth in delight to walk, granteth him in his realm earthly joy, ruling over men within his walled town, marketh the regions of the earth as his to sway, a kingdom vast, so that the end thereof in his unwisdom he cannot himself conceive. He dwells in plenty, no whit do age or sickness thwart him, nor doth black care grieve his soul, nor strife in any place bring murderous hatred forth. Nay, all the world goeth to his desire. He knows nothing of worse fate, until within him a measure of arrogance doth grow and spread. Now sleeps the watchman, guardian of his soul, too sound that sleep in troubles wrapped. The slayer is very nigh, who in malice sheweth arrows from his bow, that beneath his guard he is smitten to the heart with bitter shafts. The strange and crooked biddings of the accursed spirit he cannot himself defend. Too little now him seems what long he hath enjoyed. His grim heart fills with greed, In no wise doth he deal gold-plated rings to earn him praise, and the doom that cometh he forgets and heeds not, because God, the Lord of glory, hath before granted him a portion of honor high. Therefore in the final end it cometh to pass that his fleshly garb, being mortal, faileth, falls in death ordained. Another succeeds to all, who unrecking scattereth his precious things, the old hoarded treasures of that man. His wrath he fears not. Defend thee from that deadly malice, dear Beowulf, best of knights, and choose for thyself the better part. Counsels of everlasting worth, countenance no pride, O champion in thy renown. Now for a little while thy valor is in flower, but soon shall it be that sickness or the sword rob thee of thy might, or fire's embrace, or water's wave, or bite of blade, or flight of spear, or dreadful age, or the flashing of thine eyes shall fail and fade. Very soon 'twill come that thee, proud knight, shall death lay low. Even so did I for 100 years beneath heaven rule the ring-proud Danes, and with my battle fence them round from many a neighbor over all this earth below with swords and spears, so that I counted no man beneath the compass of the sky my likely foe. Lo, a change of this fortune in my very home befell me, grief after gladness, when Grendel, ancient enemy, became the invader of my house, and I for that trespass unceasingly endured deep sorrow in my heart. For this be to the Creator thanks, to the everlasting Lord, that I have lived in my life that long strife over, to gaze on the head dyed with cruel gore. Go now to thy seat. Use the gladness of the feast, war's honor with thee. Between us shall many a host of treasures pass when morn shall come. Glad was the heart of the Geat. Swift went he to his place, seeking his seat as the king wise bade. Then was again once more for the bold and valiant sitting in that hall, fair feasting made anew. The hood of night fell darkling back upon the proud men there. All the fair host arose. The aged Scylding with grey sprinkled hair desired to seek his bed. Longing immeasurably sweet for rest, there took the Geatish knight, bold bearer of the shield. Straightway there led him forth, that man of distant folk now weary of his quest, a chamberlain who in courtesy to the knight's need ministered, and such things as in that day were due for men on warlike errantry to have. Now rested that mighty heart. The hall loomed high, wide vaunted, gold adorned. The strangers slept within, until the raven black announced with merry heart the heaven's gladness. Then came speeding blight, a radiance above the gloom. The warriors were in haste. Eager were those noble men to journey back unto their people. Far from thence, that guest proud-hearted now wished to seek his ship. Then the bold son of Ecglaf bade men runting bring, bade him take the sword, dear thing of iron. For that offered gift he spake his thanks, saying that a good friend in war he deemed it, a power in battle, nor uttered any words belittling the edges of that sword. A gallant knight was he. And now those warriors were in their armor, dight for journey longing, honored among the Danes, their prince of the high seat, went where the other sat. A mighty man of valor, Hrothgar greeted, Beowulf spake, the son of Ecgtheow. Now we who came from far away, voyaging over the sea, desire to say that we are eager to be gone to sing King Hygelac. Here have we right well been cherished in delight. Good hast thou been to us. Wherefore, if I may in any matter upon this earth deserve the greater love beyond what I have done in way of valiant works, swift will I be at hand. If news be brought to me over the encompassing seas that thy neighbors threaten thee with war's alarm, as on a time those did that hated thee, 1,000 knights will I bring to thee, mighty men unto thy aid. Thus do I know of Hygelac, lord of the Geats, though young he be, the shepherd of his folk, that in word and deed he will further me, that I may greatly honor thee, and to thy support lead throng of spears, the succor of thy knight, when thou hast need of men. If Rethric, king's son, moreover, do purpose to seek the Geatish courts, there may he find many friends, to profit our far countries visited by him that in himself hath worth. Hrothgar then spake, answering him thus: These words that thou hast spoken, the all-knowing Lord has set within thy heart. Never had I of years so young a man discourse more wise. Thou art in valor strong, and in thy mind prudent. Knowledge is in thy uttered words. Likely it is, methinks, if it should come to pass, that the spear in battle grim and deadly take Rethel's son, thy prince, the shepherd of his folk, sickness or the sword, and thou dost keep thy life, that then the sea-loving Geats would have no better one to choose for king and keeper of the wealth of mighty men, if thou wilt rule the kingdom of thy kin. The temper of thy mind pleaseth me, the better the longer known, Beowulf beloved. Thou hast accomplished that between these peoples, the Geatish folk and the spearmen of the Danes, a mutual peace shall be, and strife and hateful enemies shall sleep, where erewhile they used, and long as I may wide realm rule, shall precious things between us pass, and many a man shall send over the water where the gunnet dives, meeting to another with goodly gifts. And vessels ring adorned over the high seas shall bring offerings and tokens of our love. The people do I know to be formed in steadfast mold, be it toward foe or friend, and all things without reproach, after the good ways of old. Then shall the son of Hilfdane, protector of good men, in that hall again 12 costly things give unto him, bade him with those gifts in safety seek now his own dear people, and swiftly again return. Then the prince of the Scyldings, that king of noble line, kissed there the best of the knights, clasping him about the neck. Tears ran down his face beneath his grey-strewn hair. The two thoughts were in his heart old with the wisdom of years, but this thought more, that never might they meet again proudly in high discourse. To him the other was so dear that he might not restrain that upwelling of the heart, but twined in the heartstrings in his breast, longing profound for that beloved one now burned with his blood. Thence Beowulf went, a warrior bold in golden splendor, treading the grassy sward, his heart uplifted with rich gifts. The traverser of the sea awaited its lord and master, there on the anchor riding. For as they went oft was the bounty of Hrothgar praised. Unrivaled king was he in all things without reproach, until age robbed him of his joyous strength. Oft hath it stricken many a man. Now to the flowing sea came that band of young men, most proud wearing their net-like mail, their supple linked shirts. The watchman of the shore descried the warrior's return, as he had before. Not with unfriendly words from the cliff's brow did he hail the guest, but rode to meet them, and said to the men of the wind-loving Geats that welcome they came, warlike men in gleaming raiment to their ship. Then upon the beach was their deep-draughted vessel of the sea, with curving beak laden with gear of war, with horses and with precious things. The mast stood tall above Hrothgar's hoarded wealth. To the keeper of his ship Beowulf gave a sword, bound with golden wire, so that thereafter, sitting at the mead, he was the more honored by reason of that rich gift in heirloom old. Forth sped the bark, doubling the deep waters, and forsook the land of the Danes. Then upon the mast was the raiment of the sea, the sail, with rope made fast. The watery timbers groaned. Not did the wind blow upon the waves upon her from her course as she rode the billows. A traveller upon the sea she fared, fleeting on with foam about her throat, over the waves, over the ocean streams, with wreathed prow, until they might espy the Geatish cliffs, which and headlands that they knew. Urged by the airs up above the bark, it rested upon the land. Swiftly was the portree ready beside the sea, who long while now had anxious upon the shore looked out afar for those men beloved. The deep-bosomed ship he moored unto the beach, made fast with anchor ropes, lest the lest the might of the waves should wrest them from their fair building craft. Then he bade men bear to land the wealth of princes, the jeweled work and plated gold. Not far thence must they go to find Hygelac Rethel's son, giver of such rich gifts, where he dwelleth in his own house, chief amidst his champions, nigh to the walls of the sea. Good was that mansion, a brave king was its lord, lofty were its halls, very young was Hygd, wise and of virtue seemly, though winters few she had known within the castle courts. Herth was her sire, yet no niggard was she, nor too sparing of gifts and precious treasures to the Geatish men. The fierce mood of Thrith she did not show, good queen of men, nor her dire wickedness. None was there of the dear companions of the court, save her lord alone, who dared in his hardihood to gaze openly with eyes upon her. Nay, then he might count on deadly bonds woven by hands in store for him. Then swift was he seized and held, the sword was called upon, that with its figured blade it might make an end and deal the agony of death. No course in this for queens, for woman to pursue, peerless though she be, that she who verily he of Hemming's race made light of that. Yea, men at their ale drinking have further told that less injuries to men, less cruel wickedness she wrought, since first she was given a bride of noble line, adorned with gold, so to that young champion, since first at her father's bidding she had come unto Offa's hall, here over the wan waters journeying. There did she afterward use well her life's estate upon the royal throne. Renowned for goodness while she lived, her loving duty she had observed toward that prince of mighty men of all mankind, as I have learned. The one most excellent the two seas beneath of wide earth's race. For Offa and his bounty and his wars was honored far and wide, a man bold among the spears, who with his wisdom ruled his rightful land. Of him was begotten Omer, from the comfort of his men of might, valiant in fell deeds, of the race of Hemming, Garmin's grandson. Now this valiant one, Beowulf himself, his retinue about him went forth along the sand, threading the level beach and the wide shores. The lamp of the world shone down, the sun hasting from the south. Their journey to its ends they brought, bravely marching to where, as they had learned, the protector of good men, the young warrior king, slayer of Ongentheow, within his fast dwelling dealt out the rings, a worthy lord. To Hygelac was word of Beowulf's coming told in haste. How there to the other courts that lord of warriors, stout beneath the shield, was coming striding to the court alive and whole from the ply of war. Swift as the mighty king them bade, was room in the hall within made for the new come warriors. He who that strife had safely passed now sat him beside the very king, kinsman at kinsman's side, when he with solemn words and gracious utterance has greeted his good liege lord. Now Harith's daughter down that high hall passed for the pouring of the mead, cherished the good men there, bearing the cup of strong sweet drink to the hands of mighty men. Then Hygelac began in that lofty house with fair words to question the companion at his side. Eagerness pierced his heart to know of what sort the adventures of the sea-loving Geats had been. What fortune befell you on your voyage, Beowulf beloved, since thou didst on a sudden take the mind to seek strife far away over the salt waters, deeds of arms inherit? And come, didst thou for Hrothgar, king renowned, in any wise amend his grief so widely noised? On this account did care about my heart well ever up in surging sorrow. I feared the hazard of my man beloved. Thee long I prayed that thou shouldst in no wide approach the deadly creature, but should suffer the South Danes look themselves to their war with Grendel. To God I render thanks that I can see now thee safe returned. Beowulf made answer, the son of Ecgtheow. Lord Hygelac, no secret is it to many among mortal men in what sort our warlike bout, the mighty duel of Grendel and of me, fell out upon that field, where many a host of wrongs and age-long misery he wrought upon the victorious Scyldings. These did I all avenge, so that none upon earth of Grendel's kin hath cost to boast of that encounter at grey dawn. Who so of all that fell brood yet longest liveth in the encircling fens. First then I came there to the hall of rings, greeting Hrothgar. Straightway did the renowned son of Healfdene, as soon as he learned the temper of my mind, beside his own son appoint my seat. The company was in mirth, nor saw I ever in life beneath the vault of heaven greater revelry of men than sits at mead within the hall. At whiles the glorious queen, peace and goodwill of peoples, did traverse all that floor about, enheartening the young esquires. Oft to some knight she gave a twisted ring ere she went unto her seat. At whiles before the host Hrothgar's daughter bore the goblet of ale to all good men in turn. Her did I hear men sitting in that hall named Friwaru. As gem-studded vessel to mighty men she gave. Betrothed is she, that young maid, gold adorned to Froda's gallant son. This hath the Scyldings' lord, the shepherd of his realm, determined. and accounts its policy that though that woman he may set to rest long tale of deadly deeds of enemy and strife. Oft do we see that seldom in any place, even for the briefest of time, when a prince falleth, doth the murderous spear relent, good though the bride may be. This, maybe, will in that purpose time displease the Heatheborgish king, and each knight of that folk, when one walks down their hall beside the lady, a noble scion of the Danes amidst their host. On him will gaily gleam things prized by the sires of old, a stout sword ring adorned once treasure of the Heathebards, while yet their weapons they could yield, until they led their comrades dear and their own lives to ruin in the clash of shields. Then will one speak at the ale, seeing that costly thing, a soldier old who remembers all, recalling the slaying of men with spears. Grim is the heart of him. With gloomy thought he will begin to try the young warrior's temper, searching the secrets of his breast, to wake again cruel war, and these words he will say: Canst thou not, my lord, the sword recall which thy father bore, his prized blade, unto the fray, wearing his visored helm upon that latest day whereon the Danes slew him, the eager Scyldings and ware masters of stricken field, after Withergild was slain in the downfall of mighty men? Now here the son of one I know not who, among those slayers walks in this hall, his heart unlifted with fair things, boasteth of the slaying, and weareth the treasure which thou should rights possess? Thus at each occasion will he stir remembrance, prompting with wounding words, until the hour cometh when that lady's knight shall sleep, red with his blood from the bite of sword, forfeiting his life for father's deeds. The other fleeing thence will with his life escape, knowing the land full well. Then will on either hand the sworn oaths of men be broken. Thereafter will cruel thoughts of hate surge up in Ingolf's heart, and for this tide of woe cooler will wax his love of wife. For this cause I count the goodwill of the Heathebards, their part in this royal truce, filled with menace for the Danes, their friendship insecure. I speak on once more concerning Grendel, that thou mayst fully know, O giver of rich gifts, to what end it came when we mighty ones did rush to grips. So soon as the jewel of the sky had glided over the world, that creature came in ire, bringing fierce horror in the dusk, to seek us out where yet unharmed that hall we guarded. There did slaughter upon Handish fall, a cruel ending to his doomed life. Sword grit warrior, he was the first to fall. Death came to that young knight renowned by Grendel's jaws, who all the flesh devoured of him we loved. And yet none the more did he desire to go forth from that golden hall with empty hand, that murderer with bloody tooth, bethinking him of evil deeds. Nay, he in his strength glorying of me made trial, seized upon me with eager clutch, his pouch hung down, deep was it and strange, made fast with curious thongs, with subtle skill it was all contrived by fiend's craft, wrought of dragon hides. Therein did he, doer of deadly deeds, desire to thrust me all unoffending, adding one more to many, that might not be done, were I in ire stood upright upon my feet. Too long it is to tell how I to that destroyer of men gave due reward for each of his foul deeds. There I, my lord, brought honor on thy people by my works, To hiding he escaped, a little while possessed the joys of life, and yet his right hand remained to mark his trail behind in Herat, and he humbled misery in his heart, far thence did cast him to the Mir's abyss. For that deadly combat the Scyldings' lord granted me a manifold reward of plated gold and many precious things. When morn was come and we had sat at the feasting, there was mirth and minstrelsy. The aged Scylding, full of ancient lore, told tales of long ago. Now did he, once bold in battle, touch the harp to mirth, the instrument of music. Now a lay recited true and bitter, or again a great hearted king, some wondrous tale rehearsed in due order, or yet again, warrior of old wars, in age's fetters did lament his youth and strength in arms. His heart heaved within him, when he, wise with many years, recalled a host of memories. Thus did we within that hall all the long day take our delight until another night came upon this world. Then was Grendel's mother swiftly ready to revenge her woe once more. Full of anguish she took the road. Death had taken her son, the wrathful valor of the wind-loving Geats. Inhuman troll wife, she avenged her child, and daringly a man she slew. There was from Aesir the life sped forth, a sage wise in old lore. Nor could they, the Danish lords, when morn was come, burn him sleeping in death upon the blazing wood, nor lift upon the pyre that man beloved. She had borne away that corse in her fiend's clutches beneath the mountain stream. That was for Hrothgar the most grievous of those his sorrows that he, lord of his folks, long while had known. Then the king, gloomy hearted, implored me by the life that I would in the tumult of the deeps accomplish great deeds of prowess, adventure my life achieving glory. Reward he vowed me. Then, as is noised abroad, I sought out the grim and dreadful guardian of the whirling gulf. There awhile were our hands in duel joined. The deep swirled with blood, and in that abysmal hall I hewed the head of Grendel's mother with the edges of a mighty sword. Thence hardly did I retrieve my life, but not yet was I doomed to die. Nay, the son of Hilfdane, protector of good men, gave me thereafter a multitude of precious things. Thus did the king of that people live accordingly to kingly virtue. No whit did I fail to find those rewards, my valor's need. Nay, to me the son of Hilfdane gave costly things at mine own choice. These, O warrior king, I shall bring to thee, offering them in all good heart. To thee belongeth still all the share of joys. Few have I of kinsmen near and dear, O Hygelac, save thee. He bade now the men in the banner charged with the boar's head, and the helm towering in war, the great corslet, the sword of battle cunning wrought, and thereupon uttered these appointed words. To me did the wise prince Hrothgar give this raiment of war, and spake bidding me that I should first describe to thee his gracious gift. He said that King Hrothgar, lord of the Scyldings, long while possessed it, and yet he would not for that rather bestowed it upon his son, the gallant Hereward, upon the clothing of his breast, loyal to him though he was, use all the gifts with honor. I have heard to that those fair things 4 steeds dapple gray, swift and well matched, were added. Beowulf to Hygelac granted the sweet possession of horses and of precious things. Even so shall a kinsman do nor in any wise shall spread with secret craft a net of malice for another, death devising for the comrade at his side. To Hygelac, doubtless in fell deeds, his nephew was exceeding true, and each was mindful of the other's honor. I have heard too that Hygd he gave that necklace, a costly thing of intricate and marvelous fashion, which Wealhtheow, king's daughter, had bestowed on him, and therewith 3 horses, lithe-limbed with gleaming saddles, nobly arrayed was her breast thereafter by that necklet she received. Thus did the son of Ecgtheow, renowned in battle, show his manhood in fair deeds, bearing himself honorably. Never did he at the drinking strike down the comrades of his hearth. No grim heart was his. Nay, with greatest might among mankind, he maintained those lavish gifts which God had granted him. A warrior bold. Long was he contemned, for the sons of the Geats did not account him worthy, nor would the king of the wind-loving folk accord him a place of much honor upon the seats where men drink mead. They much misdoubted that he was of sluggish mood, without eager spirit though of noble birth. A change and end of all his heart's griefs had come for him, a man now blessed with glory. Then the king in battle valiant, protector of good men, commanded that a fair thing bequeathed by Hrethel, adorned with gold, should be brought to the hall. In that time there was not among the Geats a treasure or rich gift more excellent in form of sword. This now on Beowulf's lap he laid, and granted unto him 7,000 hides of land, a hall and pricely throne. To both of them alike had land by blood descended in that realm, estates and rightful heritage, but in greater measure to the one that was higher in the land, a kingdom wide. This after came to pass in later days in the clash of wars, when Hygelac was fallen, and swords of battle had been raiders' bane amidst the shield ranks, when times the warlike Scyldings, dauntless men at arms, sought him out amid his glorious people, and came upon him, nephew of Herric, with fell assault. Then in Beowulf's hand came that broad realm, where he ruled it for 50 winters. Now was he a king of many years, aged guardian of his rightful land, until a certain one in the dark nights began to hold sway, a dragon, even he who on the high heath watched his hoard. His steep stone barrow below lay a path little known to men. Therein he sat Therein went some nameless man, creeping in nigh to the pagan treasure. His hand seized a goblet deep, bright with gems. This the dragon did not after in silence bear, albeit he had cheated in his sleep by thief's cunning. This the people learned, men of the neighboring folk, that he was wroth indeed. By no means of intent had that man broken the dragon's hoard of his own will. He who was thus wronged him grievously, but in dire need, being the thrall of some one among the sons of mighty men, he had fled from the lashes of wrath, and having no house, he crept therein, a man burdened with guilt. Soon did the dragon bestir himself, that swiftly upon the trespasser dire terror fell. Yet none the less ill-fated one, when the sudden danger came on him, he saw a treasure chest. There was in that house of earth many of such olden treasures as someone, I know not who, among men in days of yore had there prudently concealed, jewels of price and mighty heirlooms of a noble race. All of them death had taken in times before, and now he too alone of all the proven warriors of his people, who longest walked the earth, watching, grieving for his friends, hoped but for the same fate, that he might only a little space enjoy those prolonged things. A barrow already awaited upon the earth, nigh to the watery waves, new made upon a headland, secured by binding spells. Therein did the keeper the rings laid a portion of right, worthy to be treasured on the wealth of noble men, of plated gold, and a few words he spake. Keep thou now earth, since mighty men could not, the wealth of warriors. Lo, aforetime in thee it was that good men found it. Death in battle, cruel and deadly evil, hath taken each mortal man of my people, who have forsaken this life, the mirth of warriors in the hall. I have none that may bear sword or burnish plated cup and precious drinking vessel. The proud host hath vanished away. Now shall the hard helm, gold adorned, be stripped of its plates. Those who should burnish it, who should polish its visor for battle, are asleep. And the armor too that stood well the bite of iron swords in war amid bursting shields now followeth its wearer to decay. The ringed corslets no more may widely fare in company of a prince of war. Upon the side of mighty men there is no glad sound of harp, no mirth of instrument of music, nor doth good hawk sweep through the hall, nor the swift horse tramp the castle court. Ruinous death has banished hence many a one of living men. Even thus in woe of heart he mourned his sorrow. Alone when all had gone, joyless he cried aloud by day and night, until the tide of death touched at his heart. This hoarded loveliness did the old despoiler, wandering in the gloom, find standed unprotected. Even he who filled with fire out mounds of burial, the naked dragon of fell heart that flies wrapped about in flame, him do earth's dwellers greatly dread. Treasure in the ground it is ever his wont to seize, and there wise with many years he guards the heathen gold. No whit doth it profit him. Even thus had the despoiler of men for 300 winters kept beneath the earth that house of treasure, waxing strong until one filled his heart with rage, a man who bore to his liege lord a gold-plated goblet, beseeching truths and pardon of his master. Then was the hoard laid bare, the hoard of rings minished, and his boon granted to the man forlorn. The Lord for this first time gazed now on the olden work of men. Then the serpent woke. New strife arose. He smelt now along the rock, and grim-hearted he perceived the footprint of his foe, who in his stealth had stepped right nigh, yea, close to the dragon's head. Thus may indeed one whose fate is not to die with ease escape woe and evil lot, if he have the favor of the Lord. The guardian of the hoard searched eagerly about the ground, desiring to discover the man who had thus wrought him injury as he lay in sleep. Burning woeful at heart, oft times he compassed all the circuit of the mound, but no man was there in the waste. None the less he thought with joy of battle, of making war. Ever and anon he turned him back into the barrow, seeking the jeweled vessel. Quickly he had discovered this, that someone among men had explored the gold and mighty treasures. In torment the guardian of the hoard abode until evening came. Then was the keeper of the barrow swollen with wrath, purposing, fell beast with fire to avenge his precious drinking vessel. Now was the day fated to the serpent's joy. No longer would he tarry on the mountainside, but went blazing forth, sped with fire. Terrible for the people in that land was the beginning of that war, even as swift and bitter came its end upon their lord and patron. Now the invader did begin to spew forth glowing fires and set ablaze the shining halls. The light of the burning leapt forth to the woe of men. No creature there did that fell winger of the air purpose to leave alive. Wide might it be seen how the serpent went to war, the malice of that fell oppressor. From near and far be seen how the destroyer in battle pursued and humbled the people of the Geats. Back to his horde he sped to his dark hall, ere that time of day he had wrapped the dwellers in the land of flame. In fire and burning he trusted in his barrow, and its wall and his own warlike might, and his trust cheated him. Now to Beowulf were the dread tidings told, swift and true, that his own homestead, best of houses, was crumbling in the whirling blaze, even the royal seat of the Geats. Grief was that to the good man's heart, the greatest of sorrows in his breast. Wise though he was he thought that he had bitterly angered the eternal Lord, ruler of all, against the ancient law. His breast within him whelmed in dark boding thought, as was unwonted of him. For flaming dragon from without the sea-boarded land, with glowing fires had crushed to ruin the stronghold of the folk, the guarded realm. For him did the king of war, lord of the wind-loving Geats, ponder vengeance therefore. He then, protector of warriors, lord of good men, bade fashion for him a shield for battle curiously wrought, all made of iron. Full well he knew that no wood of the forest, no linden shield, would avail him against the flame. Appointed was it that the prince, proven of old, should find now the end of his fleeting days of life in this world, and the serpent with him, albeit he had long possessed his hoarded wealth. Lo, the Lord of Gold disdained with a host and mighty army to go against the creature flying far abroad. For himself he did not fear the contest, nor account as anything the valor of the serpent, nor his might and courage. For he, daring many a grievous strait, had aforetime come safe through many a deadly deed and clash of war, since the time when champion victory crowned he had purged Hrothgar's hall, and in battle crushed the kin of Grendel of hated race. Not the least of these encounters was that wherein Hygelac was slain, wherein the onslaughts of war blades drank the blood of the king of the Geats, the gracious prince of peoples, Rethel's son, in the Frisian lands by the broadsword beaten down. Thus Beowulf got him by his own prowess, using his craft of swimming. He alone upon his arm had 30 coats of mail, as he strode into the deep. Little cause, in sooth, had the Hetware who bore forth their shields against him to exult in that fight on foot. Few came back from that fierce warrior to see their home. Then the son of Ecgtheow, over the expanse of the salt sea, unhappy and alone, swam back to his people. There Hygd offered to him treasury and realm, rings and kingly throne. She trusted not in her son, that he was yet wise enow to defend the seats of his fathers against alien host, since Hygelac was dead. Yet never the more could the bereaved people obtain in any wise from the prince that he would be lord over Heardred, or accept the kingship. Rather, he upheld him among his folk with friendly counsel and love and honor, until he grew older and ruled the wind-loving Geats. To Heardred came banished men over the sea, the sons of Othere. They had set at naught the lord of the Sylfings, that best of sea kings that ever in Sweden dealt out precious gifts, a king renowned, that marked his end there to the sons of Hygelac, for his harboring was allotted a deadly wound by stroke of sword. But the son of Oginthial, when Heardred was slain, returned to seek his home, suffering Beowulf to hold the kingly throne and rule the Geats. A good king was he. He did not forget the requital of his prince's fall in later days. To Aedgils in his need he was found a friend. With a host he supported Other's son, with warriors and weapons beyond the broad lake, and later in cold and grievous marches achieved revenge. The king he reft of life. Even thus had he, the son of Ecthio, been preserved in every deadly strait and cruel slaying and desperate deed, until that one day when he must fight the serpent. Then, filled with grief and rage, the lord of the Geats, with 11 companions, went to look upon the dragon. Already he had learned whence those deeds of enmity and dire hatred of men had sprung. Into his possession had come the splendid and precious vessel by the hand of the spy. He was in that company the 13th man who had wrought the beginning of that warfare, a captive with gloomy heart. He now must in shame show the way thence over the land. Against his will he went to where he knew a solitary hall of earth, a vault underground, nigh to the surges of the deep and the warring waves. All filled within was it the cunning work in golden wire, the monstrous guardian eager and ready in battle, ancient beneath the earth kept those golden treasures. No easy bargain that for any among men to win. Now upon the headland sat the war-proven king, for whom the Geats had love and gifts of gold, while he bade farewell unto the companions of his hearth. Heavy was his mood, restless, hastening toward death, the fate very nigh indeed that was to assail that aged one, to attack the guarded soul within, and sunder life from body. Not for long thereafter was the spirit of the prince in flesh entrammelled. Beowulf spake, the son of Ecgtheow. In youth, from many an onslaught of war, I came back safe. From many a day of battle I do recall it all. 7 winters old was I when the king of wealth, gracious prince of peoples, received me of my father. King Hrethel it was who guarded me and kept me, and gave me rich gift and fair feast, remembering our kinship. No whit was I while he lived less beloved by him within his house than any of his sons, even Herbeld and Hecthin and Hygelac my lord. For the eldest, as never should it have been, by a kinsman deed the bed of cruel death was made, when Hathin shot it with arrow from his horn-tipped bow, smote grievously his lord. He missed his mark and shot to death his kinman. Brother slew brother with a bloody shaft. That was an assault inexpiable, a wrong most evilly wrought, heart-wearying to the soul, and yet the prince must depart from life all unavenged. In like wise is it grievous for an old man to endure that his son, yet young, should swing upon the gallows, that he should utter a dirge, a lamentable song, while his child hangs as sport unto the raven, and he old and weighed with years cannot devise him any aid. Ever is he reminded, each morning of his son's passing. Little he cares to await within his courts another heir, now that his own hath tasted evil deeds through the violence of death. In care and sorrow he sees in his son's dwelling the hall of feasting, the resting place swept by the wind, robbed of laughter. The riders sleep, mighty men gone down into the dark. There is no sound of harp, no mirth in those courts such as once there were. Then he goes back into his couch, alone for the one beloved he sings a lay of sorrow. All too wide and void did seem to him those fields and dwelling places. Even so did the Lord of the wind-loving folk bear the surging sorrow of his heart for Herebeld. In no wise could he exact atonement for the evil deed from the slayer of life. None the more might he pursue with deeds of hate that warrior, though little was his love. Then beneath that sorrow that had fallen thus too grievously upon him, he forsook the joys of men. God's light he sought. To his heirs, as rich man doth, he left his lands and populous towns, departing from this life. Soon was deed of hate and strife between Swixt and Gede, and feud on either hand across the water wide. Bitter enmity and war since Hrethel was dead, or else the sons of Oginthiau were bold in war, eager to advance and desire not to keep the peace across the sea. But upon Rensburg they set off, times wrought cruel slaughter in their hate. That did my kinsmen avenge, the deeds of enmity and wrong, as was been famed, albeit one of them paid for it with his life in grim barter. Upon Hathan, lord of the Geats, war fell disastrous. That day, as I have heard, at morn one kinsman with the edges of his sword brought home to the slayer the other's deaths. When Ongintheow met Afer, the helm of battle sprang asunder, and the aid sylphing fail, death pale in his fray. His hand remembered failed deeds anew, but it warded not the fatal stroke. Hygelac I repaid in battle for those precious gifts that he gave me, even as he was permitted me. With my shining sword he gave me lands, and the joyous possession of my father's home. No need was there for him that he should seek among the Giphathus or the spearmen of the Danes, or in the Swedish realm a warrior less doughty or hire such with pay. Ever in the marching host I would go before him alone in the front of war, and thus shall through life do battle, while this sword endures that he oft, early and late, served me well, since before the proven host my hands were Derfin's death, the champion of the Franks. In no wise might he bring that fair wrought ornament to the beast unto the Frisian king. Nay, he fell in battle, the keeper of the banner, that prince in his pride. No sword edge was his slayer, but a warrior's gripe it was that quenched his beating heart, crushed his frame of bones. Now shall the sword's edge, hard and tempered blade, do battle for the horde. Beowulf spake, for the last time proud words he uttered. In youth many a deed of war I dared, and still I will, aged protector of my people, seek strife and achieve renown, if that worker of evil and ruin comes forth from his house of earth to find me. Then he addressed each of those men, bold warriors bearing their shields, his dear comrades for the latest time. I would not bear sword or weapon against the serpent, if I knew how else I might grapple with the fierce destroyer to mine honor, as aforetime I did with Grendel. But here do I look for fell fire's heat, for blast and venom, wherefore I have upon me shield and corslet. Yet I will not from this barrow's keeper flee 1 foot's pace, but us to twain hereafter shall it be done at the mound's side, even as fate, the portion of each man, decrees to us. Fearless is my heart, wherefore I will forbear from vaunting threat against this winged foe. Wait now on the hill, clad in your corslets, ye knights in harness, to see which of us two may better endure his wounds when the combat is over. This is not an errand for you, nor is it within the measure of any man, save me alone, that he should put forth his might against the fierce destroyer, doing deeds of knighthood. I shall with my valor win the gold, or else shall war, cruel and deadly evil, take your prince. Then the bold warrior stood up beside his shield, resolute beneath his helm. Wearing his grim mail, he strode up to the stony cliffs, trusting in the strength of one man alone, such as no craven's feat. Then he who, endowed with manly virtue, had passed through many a host of battles and a clash of war, when the ranks of men smote together, saw now at the mound's side a stone arch standing, from whence a stream came hurrying from the hill. The boiling water of that spring was hot with deadly fires. No man could long last while endure unscorched that deep place nigh the hoard by reason of the dragon's flame. Now in his wrath the prince of the wind-loving Geats let words speed from his breast. Grim of heart he shouted loud, so that his voice came ringing clear as a war cry in beneath the hoary rock. Hatred was aroused. The guardian of the horde perceived the voice of man. No longer was there space for the suing of peace. Forth came first the blast of the fierce destroyer from out of the rock, hot vapor threatening battle. The earth rang. The lord of the Geats beneath the mound found his warrior's shield to meet the dreadful comer. Now was the heart of the coiling beast stirred to come out to fight. His sword had already the good king drawn for battle, his ancient heirloom quick of edge. Each with fell purpose in their hearts knew dread of the other, but undaunted stood the prince of vassals with his tall shield against him, while the serpent swiftly coiled itself together. In his armor he weighted it. Now it came blazing, gliding in looped curves, hastening to its fate. The shield well protected the life and limbs of the king renowned a lesser, while then his desire had asked if he were permitted to possess victory in battle, as that time on that first occasion of his life, for fate decreed it not. The lord of the Geats flung up his arms, and with his ancient sword smote the dread foe, and the burnished edge turned on the bony body, but less keenly than its king had need, thus sore oppressed. Then was the guardian of the barrow after that warlike stroke in fell mood. Murderous fire he flung, wide the flames of battle sprang. No triumphant cry of victory then uttered he, from whom the Geats had love of gifts and gold. His naked blade had failed him in the cruel deeds of battle, as never should it have done that iron tired of old. No pleasant fare was his that day, nor such that the renowned son of Ecgtheow should of his own will forsake that fiend on earth. Against his will must he inhabit a dwelling over there, even as each man must, leaving the brief days of life. Not long was it now those fierce slayers together came again. The guardian of the horde took heart afresh, his breast heaved with gasping breath. Anguish he endured, oppressed with fire, who aforetime was ruler of his folk, In no wise did his companions in arms, sons of princes, stand about him, a company proved in war. Nay, they had retreated to a wood for the saving of their lives. In one alone of them the heart was moved with grief. Kinship may nothing set aside in virtuous mind. Wiglaf was he called, Wiston's son, and that fair warrior beneath his shield, a lord of Seafling race of Ahir's line, he saw his liege lord beneath his visored helm of war and torment of heat. He remembered then those whose favors which Beowulf had granted to him, the rich dwelling place at Wigmunding's, and all the landed rights which his father before had held. Then he could hold back no more. His hand-wielded shield of yellow linden, ancient sword he drew. Among men was it known as plunder of Aemond Othir's son. Him, a lordless exile, did Wiston in battle slay with edge of sword, and to Aemond's kin bore off his bright burnished helm, ringed corslet, and old gigantic sword, all which did Onela return to him, the battle harness of his nephew and gallant gear of war. Nor did he speak of the injury to his house, albeit Wiston had laid low his brother's son. These fair things he kept for many a year, both sword and corslet, until his son might accomplish deeds of knightly valor, as his father had before him. Then he gave unto him in the land of the Geats a harness of battle and uncounted store, where he departed life full of years upon his journey hence. This was the first venture in which that champion young was destined to make onslaught and battle beside his good lord. His heart turned not to water within him, nor did the weapon his sire bequeathed betray him in the fight. And that indeed the serpent found when they came together. Wiglaf spake many a fright-fitting word, saying to his comrades, for heavy was his heart, I do not forget the time when, where we took our meat in the hall of revelry, we vowed to our master, who gave us these precious things, that we would repay him for that raiment of warriors, the helmets and stout swords. If ever on him such need as his was fall, for this of his own choice he could us amid the host. For this adventure, considering us worthy of glorious deeds, for this he gave to me these costly gifts, for he accounted us spearmen valiant, bold hearts of the helm, yea, even though our Lord, shepherd of his people, purposed alone on our behalf to achieve his work of prowess, for he hath above all men wrought feats of renowns and deeds of daring. Now is the day come when our liege lord hath need of valor and of warriors good. Come, let us go to him. Let us help our leader in arms while the heat endures the glowing terror grim. God knoweth that for my part far sweeter is it for me that glowing fire should embrace my body beside the Lord that gave me gold. Nor seems it fitting to me that we bear back our shields unto our home, unless we can first smite down the foe, and prove and defend the life of the king of the wind-loving people. Verily I know that his deserts of old were not much that he alone of proven Geatish men should suffer anguish, and fall in battle. With him my sword and helm, my corslet and my armor shall be joined in league. Then strode he through the deadly reek, his head armed for war, to the succor of his lord, and these brief words he spake. Beowulf, beloved, do all things well unto the end, even as thou didst vow aforetime in the days of youth, that thou wouldst not while living suffer thy honor to fall low. Now must thou, brave in deeds, thy noble heart unwavering, with all thy might thy life defend. To the uttermost I will aid thee. Upon these words the serpent came on in wrath a second time, alien creature, fierce and evil, assailing with swirling fires, drawing nigh unto his foes, these hated men. His buckler in the billowing flames was burned even to the boss. His corslet could afford no help to that young wielder of the spear, but beneath his kinsman's shield starkly fouled that warrior young, when his own was crumbled in the glowing fires. Now once more the king of battle recalled his renowned deeds. With mighty strength he smote with his warlike sword, and fast in the head it stood, driven by fierce hate. Nagling burst asunder Beowulf's sword, old, grey-bladed, had failed him in the fight. It was not vouchsafed to him that blades of iron might be his aid in war. Too strong that hand, that as I have heard with its swing overtaxed each sword, when he to the battle bore weapons marvelously hard, no whit did it profit him. Then for the third time the destroyer of the folk, the fell fire dragon, bethought him of deeds of enmity, and rushed upon that valiant man, now that a clear field was given him. Burning and fierce in battle, his neck was his sharp body, teeth he seized now all about, and Beowulf was reddened with his own life-blood. It welled forth in gushing streams. I have heard tell that in that hour of the king's need, the good man unbowed showed forth his valor, his might and courage, as was the manner of his kin. He heeded not those jaws, nay, his hand was burned. As valiant he aided now his kinsman, and smote that alien creature fierce a little lower down. A knight in arms was he, so that bright and golden hilded his sword plunged in, and the fire began thereafter to abate. Once more the king himself mastered his senses. He drew forth a deadly dagger keen and whetted for the fray, that he wore against his mail. Lord of the wind-loving folk, he ripped up the serpent in the midst. They had slain their foe. Valor had vanquished life. Yea, together they had destroyed him, those two princes of one house. Of such sort should a man be, a loyal liege at need, that for the king was the last of his hours of triumph by his own deed, last of his labors in the world. Now the wound that the dragon of the cave had wrought on him began to burn and swell. Swiftly did he thus perceive that in his breast within the venom seethed with deadly malice. Then the prince went and sat him upon a seat beside the mound, full of deep thought. He gazed upon that work of giants, marveling how that everlasting vault of earth contained within it those stony arches on the pillars fast upheld. Then that knight surpassing good with his hands sprinkled him with water, that king renowned all dreadly bloody, his own liege lord. Weary of war, his helmet he unclasped. Beowulf spake despite his hurt, his grievous mortal wound he spake. Verily he knew that he accomplished his hours of life, his joys upon the earth. Now was departed all the number of his days, and death exceeding near. Now to a son of mine I should have wished to give my harness of battle, had it been granted unto me that any heir of my body should follow me. This people have I ruled for 50 winters. No king was there, not among the peoples dwelling nigh, who dared with ailed swords approach me, or threatened me with war's alarm. In mine own land I faced what time brought forth, held well mine own, nor pursued with treachery cruel ends, nor swore me many an oath unrighteously. And all this way I now, sick of mortal wounds, have joy, for that the ruler of men hath not cause to charge me with cruel murder of my kin, when my life departeth from my body. Now go thou swiftly and survey the horde beneath the hoary rock, Wiglaf beloved. Now that the serpent lieth dead, sleepeth wounded sore, robbed of his treasure, make now haste, that I may behold the wealth of long ago, the golden riches may plain survey, the clean clear jewels cunning wrought. So may I, the wealth of precious things achieved, the softer lead my life in the lordship which long time I held. Then I heard that speedily the son of Wiston, when these words were spoken, did hearken to his wounded lord in combat stricken, striding in his net-like mail, his corslet for battle woven, under the barrow's vault. Then passing by the seat, that young knight proud-hearted, filled with the joy of victory, beheld a host of hoarded jewels, gold glistening that lay upon the ground, marvelous things upon the wall, the very lair of that old serpent in the dim light flying, and ewers standing there, vessels of men bygone days, reft of those who cared for them, their fair adornment crumbling. There was many a helm old and rusted, a multitude of twisted armlets and strange devices twined, treasure, gold hidden in the earth, heavily, easily may overtake the heart of any of the race of men. Let him beware who will. Those two he saw a banner hanging all wrought of gold, high above the hoard, the chiefest of all marvelous things of handicraft, woven by skill of fingers. Therefrom a radiance ensued, that he might plain perceive that space beneath the earth, and all the precious things survey. Of the serpent there was naught to see, nay, the sword had taken him. Then, as I have heard, within that mound the hoard and ancient work of giants did one man plunder, lading his bosom with dish and goblet at his own sweet will. The banner too he seized, of standards the most shining fair, the broadsword of his aged lord, iron was its edge, had brought to ruin him that in his sway these precious things had kept long while. The terror of his flame wielded hot before the horde, swirled fiercely in the midmost night, until he died a bitter death. In haste was the messenger eager to return, urged by the precious spoils. Anxiety pierced his uplifted heart to know whether he should yet living find the prince of the wind-loving people upon that level place where he had erewhile left him, his valor ebbing. Now bearing these precious things, he found that prince renowned, his lord, bleeding, nigh to his life's end. Once more he began to sprinkle him with water, until speech like a sharp pang burst from the prison of his breast. Thus spake the aged warrior, king in anguish, looking upon the gold. To the master of all, the glorious king and everlasting lord, I speak now my words of thanks for these fair things that I here gaze upon, for that I have been suffered ere my death's hour such wealth to gather for my people. Now that I have for the hoard of precious things bartered the span of mine own life, do ye henceforth furnish the people's needs. No longer may I here remain. Bid ye men renowned in war to make a mound for me, plain to see when the pyre is done, upon a headland out to sea. I shall tower on high upon Ransnays, a memorial to my folk. The voyagers upon the sea shall hereafter name it Beowulf's Barrow, even they who speed from afar their steep ships over the shadows of the deep. From his neck that prince of valiant heart undid a golden circlet and gave it to his knight, young wielder of the spear, and his helm gleaming with gold, his corslet and a ring, bidding him use them well. Thou art the end and latest of our house of Wegman's line. All hath fate swept away of my kinsfolk to their appointed doom. Good men of valor, I must follow them. That was the latest word that issued from the aged heart and breast, ere he betook him to pyre and the hot surge of warring flames. From his bosom did the soul depart to seek the judgment of the just. Then grievous was the lot of the man, a little tired in years, seeing upon the earth that most beloved of men at his life's end, suffering miserably. His slayer too lay dead, the dire dragon of the cave bereft of life, whom torment had oppressed. Those hoarded rings no longer might he rule, that serpent crooked coiling, nay, blades of iron had seized him, hard, forged by hammers, notched in war, that he who had winged afar by wounds was stilled, fallen upon the ground beside his treasure house. Never more in his disport did he wander through the air at midmost night, nor proud in the possession of fair things reveal his form to men, but was cast upon the earth by the hand and deed of that leader of the host. In sooth, few among men that possessed great valor in that land, as I have learned, had luck therein, when daring though he were in every deed, he hurled him against the blast of that envenomed foe, or troubled with his hands his hall of rings, if he therein had found the guardian dwelling, watchful in his mound. Even by Beowulf was his portion of those kingly treasures paid for with his death. Now both now had journeyed to the end of passing life. Now it was not long ere those laggards in battle, who before had not dared to wield their shafts in the great need of their sovereign lord, forsook the wood, 10 faint hearts together, breakers of their vows. But now in shame they came bearing their shields and harness of war to where the aged king lay dead. They looked upon Wiglaf. Wearied he sat, that champion of the host, close to the side of his lord, seeking with water to revive him. Naught did it avail him. He could not, dearly though he wished it, keep upon the earth his captain's life, nor any whit avert the Almighty's will. God's doom was ever the master then of every man in deeds fulfilled, even as yet now is. Then did each man that had forgot his valor with little seeking get a grim rebuke from Wiglaf the young, the son of Wiston. He now spake a man with pain of heart, looking on those men unloved. Lo, this indeed may he say, who wishes the truth to tell, that his liege lord, who gave ye those costly gifts and shoulders gear, arrayed within ye now stand here, in that time where he oft did grant to you, sitting drinking ale upon the benches in his hall, both helm and corslet, even the most splendid of such things as he, a king for his knights, might get for you from far or near, that in his hour when war came upon him, all that harness of war he utterly had cast away ruinously. Little cause indeed had the kings of this people for pride and comrades in arms. None the less God who ruleth victories vouchsafed to him that he unaided avenged himself with his sword when he had need of valor. Little succor of his life could I accord him in that combat, and yet essayed beyond the measure of my power to help my kinsman. Thereafter ever was that deadly adversary in vigor less, when I had smitten him with sword, less violent than the fire surge from the gateways of his head. Too few the defenders that thronged about their prince, when that evil hour was upon him. Behold, receiving of rich gift the giving of swords, all joy in the homes of your fathers and hope shall fail for all your kin. Stripped of lands and rights shall each man of that house of line depart, when good men learn from afar of your retreat indeed and glorious. Death is more sweet for every man of worth than life with scorn. Then he bade men up over the cliff by the sea to bring news of the deeds of war to the fenced camp, wherein good men assembled, having their shields beside them, sat the long morning of the day, gloom in their hearts, pondering either chance the last day of the homecoming of the man they loved. Little of these tidings knew did he in silence keep, who rode that seaward slope, but faithfully he said for all to hear, now is he who the wind-loving people furnished their delight, the Lord of the Geats, bound upon the bed of death. He abides upon a bloody couch through the serpent's deed. Beside him his mortal adversary lies stricken with strokes of knife. Sword could in no wise to that fierce slayer do grievous hurt. Wiglaf, Wiston's son, by Beowulf sits. The brave living watch the brave dead. In weariness of soul he holds wake beside the body of both friend and foe. But now must our people look for time of war, as soon as afar to Frisian and to Frank and a king's fall is revealed. Bitter was the face feud decreed against the Franks when Hygelac came sailing with his raiding fleet to Frisian land. There that Hetware in his battle assailed him, and valiantly with overwhelming strength achieved that the mailed warrior should lay down, he fell amid the host. Not one fair thing did that lord of his men give, from us hath ever been, since the favor of the Merovingian lord withheld. Nor do I from the Swedish realm look for any peace or truth at all. Rather has it been reported far and wide that Ogenthiau reft of life, Hathan's Hrethel son beside Ravenswood, when the Geatish folk in arrogance had first attacked the warlike Silfings. Quickly did the aged father of Othir, old and dread, deliver him an unanswering stroke. The sea chieftain he destroyed. And his wife, aged as he rescued, his lady revered. Of her gold bereaved, the mother of Onilla and Othir, and then pursued his mortal foes until they escaped hard pressed, leaderless into Raven's Holt. Then, with all his great host, he besieged the survivors of his sword. Weary with their wounds, grievous things often did he vow to that unhappy band through the long night, saying that he at morn would spill their lives with edge of sword, or some would do upon gallows tree to be the sport of crows. Relief thereafter came for those unhappy hearts with the first light of day, when they heard the horns and trumpets of Hygelac for battle ringing, as that good man came marching on their trail with the proven valor of his people. Plain to see was far and wide the bloody swath of Geats and Swedes, the murderous assaults of men, how those peoples between them stirred up deeds of enmity. Then the good king, full of years, was he and many sorrows, but took him with his bodyguard to fast place. Yea, the warrior Ogenthau gave back to higher ground. He had heard the valor of Hygelac, and that might in war the proud prince. He hoped not to withstand him, nor to strive against those men of the sea, to defend from those fierce rovers treasure, child, nor wife. Back he gave from that place the old king, behind an earthen wall. Their attack was ordered upon the people of the Swedes. The banners of Hygelac marched forth over the defended space, when Hrethel's people came crowding upon the fenced camp. There was Ogenthiau with grey-strewn hair, driven to bay with edge of sword, and there must that king of people endure the single will of Eärfur. Him in wrath had Wolf Ronding with his weapon wound, so that at the stroke from veins forth spouted blood beneath the hair. And yet daunted was he not, the aged Sylfing, nay, swiftly requited that deadly blow with exchange more fell, when he, the king of his people, turned upon his foe. Now could the eager son of Wandred no answering blow return, nay, he had cloven the helm upon his head, so that dyed with blood must he sink down. he fell upon the earth. Not yet was not yet was he doomed to die. Nay, he recovered, albeit the wound had touched him nigh. Lo, Hygelac's bold knight, since his brother was laid low, let now the broad blade of ancient giant forged sword above the wall of shields shatter the helm gigantic. Now the king gave back the shepherd of his people. He was stricken mortally. Many then were those that bound up Eofor's brother and swiftly lifted him, since it was granted them that they should be masters of the stricken field. Whereupon the knights despoiled his adversary. From Ungantheo he then took the iron corslet, the hilted sword hard templed, and the helm too. The harness of the grey-haired lord he bore to Hygelac. These fair things he received and graciously vowed to him rewards amid his people, and even so fulfilled his words. For their onslaught in that battle, the lord of the Geats, Hrethel's heir, when he came to home in Eofor and Wulf, repaid his gifts beyond measure. To each of them he gave 100,000 silver pence, and land and linked rings. No cause had any man on earth to reproach him with those rewards, since they had with their swords achieved such glorious deeds. Moreover, to Eofor he gave his only daughter as a pledge of his favor for the honoring of his house. Such is the feud and enmity, the cruel malice of men, for which I look, in which the Swedish people will come against us, when they learn that our Lord is reft of life, who aforetime did guard against those that hated him his treasury and realm, after the fall of mighty men did rule the sea-loving Geats, accomplished but the profit of his people, yea, and befell, and before all did knightly deeds. Now is all speed the best, that when we should look upon the king of his people where he lies, and bring that no one who gave us rings upon his funeral way, nor is it due that some solitary thing should be consumed beside that proud heart. Nay, there is a hoard of precious thing, gold beyond count, grimly purchased, and rings now at the last paid for with his very life. These in rights that the blazing wood devour, that fire unfold. Not for him shall good man wear a thing of price and memory, nor maiden fair about her neck have ring to deck her. Rather, woeful hearted, stripped of gold, long time and again shall she tread the lands of exile, now that the captain of our host has laid aside his laughter, his mirth and merriment. For this shall many a spear cold at morn be grasped and seized, lifted in hand, nor shall the music of the harp awake the warriors, but the dusky raven gloating above the doomed, shall speak many things, shall to the eagle tell how it sped him at the carrion feast, when he viewed upon the wolf, and picking bare the slain. Thus was the gallant man a teller of tidings bitter. Little did he report amiss of what he had chanced or had been said. All the host arose. Joyless they went with welling tears to the foot of Eagle's head, that monstrous sight to see. So found they keeping his bed of ease, lifeless upon the earth, him who in former times had given rings to them. Now was his last day past for that good man, and the king of battles, and the prince and the wind-loving people had died a monstrous death. Already had they seen a thing there yet more strange, the loathly serpent laying there stretched out before them on the ground, grim to see, dreadly hued. The flaming dragon had been scorched with his own glowing fires. 15 measured feet in length he lay at rest. Joy in the air aforetime had been by night, then back was wont to go seeking his lair. Now was he bound in death. For the last time he had used his earthly caves. Besides them goblets and ewers stood, and dishes lay, and precious swords, rusty and eaten through, as had they dwelt there 1,000 winters in the earth's embrace. In that day the heritage had been endowed with mighty power. The gold of bygone men was wound with his spells, so that none among them may lay hand upon the Hall of Rings unless God himself, true King of Victories, granted to the man he chose the enchanter's secret and the hoard to open, to even such among men as seemed meet to him. Now all could see that to evil fortune had he sallied forth, who wrongfully had kept concealed therein the precious things beneath the builded mound. One only, and none beside, had the guardian slain before his deeds of enmity were bitterly avenged. A mystery it is where a man of prowess and good heart shall meet the end of his allotted life, when no longer may he among his kin dwell in the hall, his mead drinking. Even thus it was with Beowulf. When he sought out the barrow's guardian, his guile and malice, he knew not himself, though, what means his parting from the world should come about. To this end had the mighty chieftains, those there had laid it, set a deep curse upon it, even until day of doom, that man should be for his crimes condemned, shut in the houses of devils, fast in the bounds of hell, tormented with clinging evil, who should that place despoil. Alas, Beowulf, ere he went, not more carefully considered the old possessor's will that cursed the gold. Wiglaf spake, the son of Wiston. Oft must it be that many men through one man's will suffer woe, even as is now befallen us. We could not advise our king beloved, the shepherd of the realm, to any well-counseled course, that he should not approach the keeper of the gold, but should let him lie where long time had been, abiding in his dwelling unto the world's end, pursuing his mighty fate. The hoard is laid bare, grimly was it gained. Too mighty was the doom that thither drew this mortal man. I have spin therein, and all of it have I surveyed, the treasures of that house. When leave was given me, in no kindly wise was my entry welcomed, and beneath the earthly mound, in haste I seized with hand a mighty burden, huge of hoarded treasure, and hither did I bear them unto my king. Yet living was he then, clear in mind and conscious, and of all those things he spake, aged and in anguish, and he bade me greet you, commanding that ye should fashion in memory of your good lord's deed upon the place of his pyre such a lofty tomb, mighty and splendid, even as he was among men the most renowned in war over the wide earth, while yet it was his lot to use his wealth within his courts. Let us now haste, going once again to find and look upon the press of fair-wrought gems, the marvellous things beneath the builded mound. I will guide you, that ye from nigh at hand shall gaze upon these rings and printy, and on massive gold. Let the buyer be ready, swiftly arrayed, when we come out. Then let us bear our prince, our dearly beloved, where he shall long abide in the keeping of the Lord. Then the son of Wiston, mighty man of valor, bade them send to many among the homesteads ruled, that they being masters of men should bring up from afar wood for the pyre to their good lord's need. Now shall the smoking flame be fed, the glowing fire devour the prince of men, even him who oft endured the iron hail, when the storm of arrows, urged by bowstrings, fled above the wall of shields, and the shaft performed its task, sped by its feathered raiment, followed the arrowhead. Moreover, the wise son of Wiston summoned from the host the king's own knights, 7 in company, men most excellent. Now 8 warriors in all, they went under the accursed roof, one bearing in his hand a fiery torch, going forward at their head. No need then to cast lots who should despoil that hoard, when keeperless those men espied still any portion lying trembling there. Little did any grieve that they in haste brought forth those treasures of great price. The serpent too they thrust over the towering cliffs. Let the tide the dragon take, the flowing sea engulf the keeper of fair things. Then was the wreath gold laid upon a wain beyond all count, and the prince bore way to Wales Head, their chieftain's whore. For him the Geatish lords a pyre prepared upon the earth, not niggardly with helms o'erhung or shields of war and corslets shining, as his prayer had been. Now laid they amidst most their glorious king, mightily men lamenting their lord beloved. Then upon the hill warriors began their mightiest of funeral fires to waken. Wood smoke mounted black above the burning, a roaring flame ringed with weeping, till the swirling wind sank quiet, and the body's bony house was crumbled in the blazing. Unhappy in heart, they mourned their misery and liege lord slain. There too a lamentable lay many a Geatish maiden with braided tresses for Beowulf made, singing in sorrow, oft repeating the days of evil she sorely feared, many a slaying cruel and terror armed, ruin and thraldom's bond. The smoke faded in the sky. Then the lords of the wind-loving people, upon a seaward slope, a tomb wrought that was high and broad, to voyagers on the waves clear seen afar, and in 10 days they builded the memorial of the brave in war, encompassed with a wall what the fires had left, and such most splendid wise as men of chief wisdom could contrive. In that mound they laid armlets of jewels and all such ornament as erewhile daring hearted men had taken from the hoard, abandoning the treasure of mighty men to earth to keep, gold to the ground where yet it dwells, as profitless to men as it proved of old. Then about the tomb rode warriors valiant, sons of princes, 12 men in all, who with the woe bewail their king's lament, a dirge upraising, that man praising, honoring his prowess and mighty deeds, his worth esteeming, even as it meant that a man should his lord beloved in words extol, in heart cherish, when forth he must from that raiment of flesh be taken far away. Thus bemourned the Geatish folk for their master's fall, comrades of his earth, crying that he was ever the kings of earth of men most generous, and to men most gracious, to his people most tender, and for praise most eager. I want to thank you for taking your time to listen to me read off this time-tested story. I hope to play more games and look at more stories. I hope to continue to grow as a streamer. And I want to thank you for everything you've done. Thank you. And have a lovely day.